With a mean grin, the young man, Lian, the husband of the princess, said that he used the heroine to achieve his goal. The beginning of it all was an illegitimate child from another woman, who was named Stan. It continued with the ashen-haired beauty, the mother of this child, Celestia, being brought into the house. Due to the emotional load, the heroine fell ill. For this reason, Lian tried to kick her out. There was no more room for the heroine, the first princess, Liliana Dragnia. Realizing that the princess was only a puppet in the hands of her husband over a cup of tea, Liliana demanded a divorce. Lighting a cigarette, Lian said that divorce was unacceptable, still looking at Dragnia with the same mean smile. The princess did not have time to answer. Liliana was poisoned, Lian arranged everything, and the poison was added to the tea that Dragnia drank during the conversation. Liliana, having found herself in the past after death, decided for herself that she would achieve everything on her own and take revenge on everyone. After burying her fifth husband, the princess saw another chance and did not want to miss it. To carry out her plan, Liliana needed Archduke Dietrich Winchester, whom even the imperial family could not disrespect. Looking confidently at Dietrich and putting her hand on her chest, the princess asked to be made a duchess. It began at the funeral of the princess's fifth husband. Standing at her husband's coffin, the princess heard people calling her a witch. Sitting down by the coffin, the princess thought that she wanted to return to her room. It was clear from her eyes that she was exhausted. But once the princess was called the most noble and beautiful flower of the empire, but in just a year in the eyes of people she turned into a witch. In the first groove, the princess, who dreamed of a happy marriage, got married by order of her father. The princess's dreams were shattered to smithereens after the death of her first husband. The other 4 husbands suffered the same fate. Each time, the emperor was furious and personally searched for the culprit in death. The princess cried on her father's shoulder with grief. Rumors that Liliana was a witch drove the girl to death. The emperor, Fernando Dragnia, who loved and worried about his daughter, could only calm her down. Looking innocently at her father, Liliana asked who the killer was this time, or Fernand would not tell her again. Pressing the princess's hand to his chest, the emperor said that the truth could hurt her, and now she should be strong. When Fernand said that Liliana should organize her next wedding again, the princess was taken aback. The emperor, looking at the princess, said that Liliana needed to show how happy she could be in marriage. The princess asked if the empress wished it, thinking that she might well hate Liliana. Waving it off, the emperor said that the heroine had an erroneous opinion about the empress. Looking down sadly, Dragnia wondered if she was really mistaken. The emperor called Lian, and he entered the room, taking a handkerchief from the inside pocket of his jacket. Taking out a handkerchief, Lian began to wipe the tears from Liliana's face. The princess looked at him in surprise, kissing the handkerchief with which he wiped the princess's tears. Lian smiled at her, looking softly at Liliana. Looking firmly at his daughter, the emperor said that he would try to protect their union because they were both dear to him. Looking at her father uncomprehendingly, Liliana thought about her father's words, trying to understand what he was talking about. With his hand on his heart, Lian agreed to the emperor's request to explain to the princess what he was talking about. Leaving them alone, Fernand departed, and Lian began to explain the emperor's speech to the princess. Lian said that remembering the princess's birthday like yesterday was like yesterday, that the whole palace rejoiced at this event, and Lian has long kept the princess in his heart. Liliana was perplexed. She was stupefied by the news that Lian loved her. Taking Dragnia by the hand, Lian said that he would not leave the princess and would not allow her to be left alone. Holding the princess's hand, Lian asked what Liliana thought about this. The princess didn't know what to say to that. Looking sideways, the princess said that it was indecent to talk about such things at her husband's funeral. As she left, the princess added that the people thought she was a witch who had killed 5 husbands. Wiping the tears from the princess's face, the emperor said that the opinion of the people should not hurt her. No matter what anyone said, Liliana was the princess of this empire, but the princess only thought that she did not want to get married. The emperor said that he would use Winchester's army if needed to defend Lian and Liliana. The princess wondered why he hadn't done it sooner. Taking Liliana's hands, Fernand said that if such a fate befell Liana, he would never tell Liliana to marry again. Looking at Liliana compassionately, the emperor said that he wished his daughter happiness. He asked if she could trust him for the last time. Looking confidently at her father, Dragnia thought that if she trusted Fernando, there would be no next time. Bowing his head and putting his hand to his chest, Leon said that he understood the princess's confusion. Liliana began to be prepared for the wedding. Her face was not on her while she was combed and decorated with accessories. When the maids called the princess beautiful, she hesitated, looking up gloomily. The princess wondered if they really thought so. Following the maids, the princess met Archduke Dietrich, who was passing by. One of the princess's hairpins fell out of her hair and hit the floor with a noise. The princess turned to the knock of the hairpin. Turning around, Liliana saw the Archduke crouching on one knee. He was picking up her hairpin. Standing up, Winchester held out his hand with a hairpin in it to the princess. The princess looked at him, raising her head. Dietrich was a few heads taller than Liliana. The princess remembered the last day of the funeral. It was there that she first saw him. Dragnia could not take her eyes off him. The thought flashed through her mind that he was the most beautiful person she had ever seen. Bowing her head, the princess thanked Dietrich, thinking that her thoughts about him had not changed since that day. The Duke was a little taken aback at first, but then, clenching his lips, he bowed and silently left, continuing to walk where he had originally been going. Calmly looking after Winchester, the princess thought that she was sure that he could talk. Dragnia looked down and thought that Winchester's army would defend the place. Remembering her father's words, the princess closed her eyes, wondering if she would be happy if Leon survived. The princess continued to walk on. Leon was waiting for her at the entrance to the hall, light pouring from the door. The next day, Leon did not die. Liliana was happy for the first time she met her morning with her husband. Soon news came that Leon received the title and land holdings of the Marquise by order of the Emperor. Looking at the princess and Leon, people whispered if this case was unprecedented. Putting his hand on the princess's shoulder, Leon said that his low title would be unfavorable to her. Liliana was alerted by this situation. When Leon said that this was simply the emperor's concern for his daughter, Liliana smiled. The emperor continued to bestow gifts on Leon. Liliana, looking up, wondered why she did not feel happy. Looking down, Dragnia tried to convince herself that she was just tired because the happy marriage was preserved. Calling Dragnia, Leon entered the chambers, presenting a young boy to Liliana's eyes. Looking resolutely and confidently at his wife, Leon declared that she was his child. Liliana was taken aback, looking at Leon with open eyes. This news shocked her. Trembling, Liliana asked Leon again, and then looked at the boy. He was an exact copy of Leon. Holding his head, Leon said that he understood if the princess was angry, but explained that his mother was dead and had nothing in life. Glaring angrily at Dragnia, Leon said that the princess knew he could not have children, leading to the fact that she was the last child of his kind. Clutching the hem of her dress, the princess remembered that Leon had been diagnosed with infertility due to an incident in the battle, but she thought that he would never be able to conceive a child. When Leon announced that he wanted to add him to their family registry, Liliana was taken aback. Liliana was trembling with anger. She didn't understand how Leon could do this to her. The boy looked at the princess pitifully, pursing his lips, Liliana thinking only that there was a hierarchical system in the country and he needed its permission. Covering her face with her hand, the princess realized that no matter how Leon behaved because of the system, he could not show his anger to Liliana. Liliana ordered Mary to take Stan away and bring him something to eat, and the maid bowed and obediently began to carry out the order. As she led the child away, Mary turned around and looked at the princess, Liliana still covering her face, looking gloomy. Approaching Dragnia, Leon took her by the shoulders, asking if she would accept Stan. As she watched the letter with the child's situation being taken away, the princess wondered if the emperor would be angry with Leon when he found out and whether he would punish him. In the letter, the princess asked what Fernand thought, but he only gave his permission. Lighting a cigarette, Leon said that he would do his best for his son and Liliana. Holding the letter in her hands, the princess squeezed it, trembling. She thought that her father would take her side. At first, the princess even tried to make friends with the boy, accepting him. Saying that he could go to the princess if he wanted something, Stan said that he missed his mother. It was then that the princess realized that the boy would not consider her his mother. Later, Leon said that he wanted to bring the boy's mother to the palace. Liliana was stunned. Leon sat with his arms crossed over his chest. Liliana didn't understand anything because he had said that Stan's mother was dead. Leon said that she was alive. Liliana was furious, asking if he lied in order for Liliana to adopt the boy. Lian replied by saying that he had no choice. If he told the truth, the princess would not accept him. Now, the princess understood why Stan was always talking about her mother, because she was alive. Lian only asked for a wing so that Stan could see Celestia occasionally. Liliana's face darkened. She didn't like the situation. The princess wondered what he thought of her. After waiting for a pause, Liliana said that she would send a letter to her father. She was depressed by Lian's behavior. Drinking tea, Lian informed Liliana that he had already received permission from the emperor. Liliana was shocked. She did not understand why her father was taking Lian's side. Soon, Celestia arrived at the palace and took over the wing. She behaved like a marquise, but the princess could not stop her. Placing her hand on the necklace around her neck, Celestia asked if it suited her, adding that Lian had given it to her. Looking out the window at night, Liliana thought about how her broken heart had begun to destroy her body. Liliana was completely thin. Every day she fell asleep with the thought that she wanted to fall asleep and not wake up again so as not to see this abomination. Sitting up in bed, Liliana looked towards the door and asked why Lian had come to see her. Grinning maliciously, Lian said that there were no places in the palace that called his home that he could not enter. Coming closer, Lian suggested that Liliana go south so that the disease would pass. Slapping Lian's arm, the princess began to shout that Celestia was already acting like a hostess, asking if she wanted the main mansion as well. Throwing up his hands, Lian said that Celestia had only taken over Liliana's duties because the princess was ill. Hearing Lian's question about why Celestia was to blame for the destruction of the family, Liliana was furious. Realizing that Lian would deny that it was all for the sake of the princess's health, Liliana pursed her lips. She realized that they were trying to kick her out. When Liliana announced that she wanted a divorce, Lian was taken aback, his face contorted in incomprehension and anger. After the words about the divorce, the princess's condition began to improve, and Lian began to visit Liliana more often, which she did not like at all, and Dragnia asked her to stop harassing him. Lian did not like this behavior at all, and he was furious. Liana's long visits irritated Liliana, and her head ached from irritation. Trying to win back Liliana's favor, Lian said that spending a lot of time together was normal for a husband and wife. Liliana understood that Lian was afraid of divorce, because then he would lose everything, including the status of his illegitimate son. Looking down, the princess thought that no matter how hard he tried, everything was already decided. Looking at Liana, the princess said that no matter what he did, Liliana would not change her mind. Looking at Dragnia anxiously, Lian said that he understood that forgiveness could not be earned in 1 week, and he would try more to correct his mistakes. After drinking tea, the princess calmly said that her decision was immeasurable. Lian had nothing to answer. He just looked at the princess pitifully, saying that it was difficult to change someone's decision. After drinking tea, Liliana thought about whether she even began to feel something some days from Lian's care, but she did not understand if it was love. Placing the cup on the saucer, Liliana said that as soon as everything calmed down after the divorce, they could do whatever they wanted in the main mansion. But she could not finish her thoughts. Blood came out of her mouth. Raising her hands, Liliana looked at the blood on her clothes. Lighting a cigarette, Lian said that he had warned her, looking haughtily at the princess, that divorce was impossible. Looking at the blood on her hands, the princess was horrified. Her eyes swam. Lian looked at Liliana angrily, saying that divorce was impossible, at least because his son should not be the son of a prostitute. Dragnia could no longer answer clearly. The poison spread through her body, suffocating. Liliana spoke in fragments that the emperor would definitely do something. Leaning over the table, Lian mockingly asked if she still trusted her father. When Liliana heard about the question if she suspected anything after the death of her 5th husband, Liliana looked at Lian in shock. Looking at the princess haughtily, Lian wished her dead, saying that she was too stupid to understand anything. Bending over Liliana, Lian told her that the princess had always been just an instrument. Lian explained that the emperor had worked hard to grow Dragnia into a tool to satisfy his greed and get rid of his enemies. After lighting a cigarette, Lian said that he was surprised that Liliana did not know that all of her husbands were from the anti-emperor party. Taking a lock of Liliana's hair in his hands, Lian said that he only needed the title of heroine. Lian said that it was all just for Stan's sake. It all started with Liliana's mother dying of a poison that was intended for the emperor. Lian went on to explain that he had taken advantage of the Emperor's paranoia to destroy all his enemies, and Liliana had proven to be the perfect tool. Continuing to tell, Lian mentioned that it would be good to get rid of Archduke Dietrich, but he would soon be dealt with. Stretching his hand forward, Lian said that he would have told more, but Liliana had no more time. Dropping a cigarette next to the body of the deceased princess, Lian asked if it was not wonderful that she had finally found the freedom she had long dreamed of. The maid ran up to Liliana, but it was too late. The princess's eyes were swimming, looking at the servant. Dragnia wondered if everything could have been different. Falling to her knees in front of the princess, lifting her head off the floor, Mary began to cry as she hugged Liliana. Screaming, Liliana woke up in bed in a cold sweat, clutching the blanket in her hands. She stared at the ceiling in horror. Taking a sitting position, the princess, looked around the room. Looking blankly at the empty room, the princess tried to understand how this could happen. The princess was shocked, wondering if it was all a dream, touching her face and neck. Getting out of bed, the princess thought about the fact that she continues to dream after death. When the princess sat down on the corner of the bed, Mary came into the room and told her that Liliana had to go to the funeral. Calling Mary by name, Liliana remembered that this maid was the only one who mourned Dragnia's death. Sitting on the bed, Liliana called the maid to her. Mary obediently approached the princess. Opening the curtains, Mary asked if the princess had a nightmare. Liliana's face was pale. Looking at the maid, Liliana asked about where she was now. The princess's gaze was firm. Smiling softly, Mary said that they were in the residence of Viscount Barley. Getting out of bed, the princess asked if Viscount Barley's funeral was taking place. Looking awkwardly at the princess, the maid confirmed Liliana's assumption. Pursing her lips, Liliana thought that she was right. She had really gone back in time. Abruptly and unexpectedly, the room burst into the princess's laughter. Liliana was amused by this situation. Mary was concerned about the princess's behavior. Her laughter seemed strange to the servant. Falling abruptly silent, the princess asked Mary to call all the maids. She said that the guests should not be kept waiting. Confidently moving forward, Liliana thought that the whole situation was familiar to her. She remembered this day. 158. Opening the doors, Liliana went into the hall. The princess looked around. The room looked the same. Seeing the mirror, Dragnia came closer to it, looking at her face. She wondered about her appearance, if she had always shone like this. Raising her hand closer to her face, the princess thought that now it was more important to find out how she got into the past and why. After thinking for a while, the princess remembered Lian's words about the instrument. She remembered that Lian proposed to her in this hall. Hearing the sound of the door opening, Liliana turned around and saw Fernand behind her. After bowing, Liliana greeted the emperor, who was smiling at her. Looking up, the princess looked at the emperor. She thought that nothing had changed. Even Lian was standing behind him in the same way. Looking at the emperor, saying the same words as in the past, she looked at Lian, who was smiling confidently. Listening to her father, the princess reasoned whether he really used her for his own purposes or whether Lian deliberately lied to make Liliana more painful. Smiling at Fernando, the princess thought and resigned herself to reality. After all, it cannot be avoided. Remembering the past, Liliana thought that in this life she must take revenge. Looking firmly at the emperor, the princess confidently stated that she had no intention of getting married. She had no intention of repeating her past mistakes. The emperor looked at his daughter uncomprehendingly, asking what she was talking about. Looking at her father, the princess said that she did not say that she would not marry at all, but she was not going to do it right now. After all, the funeral of her ex-husband was not over yet. Fernand said that the princess had no reason to be afraid of discussing people, but Liliana, taking her father's hand, said that she considered the discussion of the wedding at the funeral to be immoral behavior. She asked to show at least a little respect for her ex-husband. Looking resolutely at her father, the princess understood that it looked strange because she used to indulge her father, and now she complicates everything. Tilting his head to the side, the emperor asked how much time Liliana needed for mourning. Thinking that her plan had worked, the princess asked for a month, which she said should be enough. Sitting in the carriage with Lian, Fernand asked if Dragnia's behavior did not seem strange to him. Recalling the image of his daughter, the emperor said that she looked more gloomy than usual. The emperor was gloomy, wondering how long Liliana had been in this state. Thinking that Liliana was acting strange because she had become close to someone, the emperor asked if the report had come from Mark. Looking at the emperor, Leon thought that it was Liliana's watcher, and he put his hand to his chest and replied that there had been no report. Fernand asked if the temple had said anything, to which he received a negative answer. The temple was silent. On Liliana's birthday, the temple received a prophecy that the first star that fell to earth would give birth to flames that would condemn the king. Leon grinned contentedly. He knew that the emperor was afraid of this prophecy. This weakness made it easier for him to make a deal with the empress, who was jealous of Fernanda for the princess. Looking sternly at Leon, the emperor ordered the princess to have more watchers and asked forgiveness for what had happened, saying that he remembered the promise he had made. Looking at the emperor contentedly, Leon agreed, grinning victoriously. Thinking about it, Liliana thought that she needed to fix her brother and Leon first. Thinking about the escape plan, Liliana realized that all the jewelry was in the emperor's possession, and without money, it was impossible to escape. The princess thought that she needed to find someone whom even Leon would not dare to touch. The princess remembered that the knight watching over her was always talking about one person whose family even the emperor did not dare to show disrespect, and the one who would accept even a princess who had killed 5 husbands. Upon meeting with the emperor, Dietrich informed him that he knew Barley, to which the emperor replied that he should rest before heading home. The archduke replied that he could not be absent from his lands for a long time, wishing to leave the residence as soon as possible. Smiling meanly, the emperor said that he needed the help of the Archduke of Winchester. The princess opened her eyes, and the picture of the emperor and Dietrich talking about whether it was a dream, she thought, was still in her mind. Thinking back to her meeting with Winchester before the wedding, she thought that she seemed to understand why the Archduke had been cold to her. Standing at the window, the princess thought that everyone had come to the funeral except the Archduke. The door opened abruptly. The princess turned to the noise. The thought that the Archduke had arrived flashed into her head, and Liliana was not mistaken. The Archduke entered the hall and headed towards the coffin. The princess called to Dietrich, and the Archduke turned around, looking at her. The man asked what was the matter. Looking awkwardly at Winchester, Dragnia asked him to give her some time because she had something to discuss with him. Looking sternly at the princess, Dietrich nodded and approached her, asking her to say now. Looking awkwardly at the duke, Liliana said that he was busy now, which Winchester did not deny. Raising her head, the princess thought that there would be no other opportunity and she could not miss it. Clutching the hem of her dress, Liliana thought that she should not repeat the past and must save her life. Looking confidently at Dietrich, the princess thought that she needed an archduke. His power and family would save her. Liliana said that she had a request, thinking that she should use it for her own purposes no matter what happened. Looking displeased at Dragnia, the Archduke asked why she needed his help if she had literally everything. Liliana grew gloomy. The Archduke's words were a threat that the princess immediately recognized. Looking firmly at the Archduke, Liliana confidently asked to be made the Grand Duchess of the Archduke. The Archduke calmly looked at the princess, completely ignoring her words. Liliana felt embarrassed, so she asked if the Archduke had heard what she had just said. The Archduke said that he would pretend that he had not heard anything, throwing it off to the fact that the princess was simply shocked by the loss of her husband. Looking menacingly at Liliana, Dietrich said that he did not understand how, in a different situation, a princess could propose to a man at her husband's funeral. Hearing the words about the marriage proposal, the princess blushed awkwardly as she continued to stare at Dietrich. Under the Archduke's firm gaze, Liliana thought that Winchester had misunderstood her. Looking at each other, the princess made sure that Dietrich had misunderstood her proposal. Believing that the situation looked ridiculous, the princess was sure that the Archduke was much less stunned than Liliana. Looking awkwardly at Winchester, the girl thought that she still had a chance to resolve this misunderstanding. The princess called to the Archduke, to which the Duke closed his eyes, declaring that he was leaving. Liliana, looking at him firmly, said that she had not yet finished speaking. Turning around, the Archduke asked before leaving if the princess wanted to make him her 6th deceased husband. The princess felt embarrassed. The Archduke did not even listen to her, understanding the words of the heroine not at all in the way she wanted. Turning around, the Archduke looked at Liliana in irritation and said that if not, then the conversation was over. Looking after Dietrich, Dragnia thought that she was not even surprised by the man's behavior. The princess had heard that Winchester was a very honest man, and that he hated the imperial family. Clutching a lock of hair in her hand, the princess thought that it would not be easy to gain the favor of the Archduke. Walking calmly, the princess thought that she still had time and that the Archduke did not immediately agree even to the best. Calling Mary to her, the princess said that she needed to visit the vault. The princess suggested that Viscount Barley's property had not yet been confiscated, because the emperor took all the belongings of his daughter's deceased husbands to his vault as if it belonged to him. Mary asked the princess again. Thinking that she had never received a cent or complained every time, the princess took Mary's hand. Looking resolutely at the servant, Liliana announced that she was going to keep the Viscount's property for herself, as it should be. The maid looked at Liliana in surprise, thinking that the princess had not needed money before. Thinking that the emperor had taken care of the princess, Mary thought that the princess had nothing and lived like a doll of Fernanda. Looking confidently at her maidservant, Dragnia said that someone from the palace must come to the residence to confiscate all the property. Smiling, Mary asked how she could help, thinking that things were changing. The princess, sorting through the documents in her office, looked displeased at the paper about the army, created in secret. Liliana wondered if the emperor and Leon had learned about the Viscount's secret military power. The maid looked softly at the princess, smiling, while Dragnia thought that despite the large amount of time, she had a lot to do. Sitting on horseback, the Archduke looked to the side. The knight greeted him. Jumping off his horse, Dietrich asked about the emperor, to which the knight replied that Fernand had returned to the palace. Helping the Archduke to remove his cloak, the knight asked if Winchester was all right. Looking at the knight with displeasure, Dietrich asked what he meant. The knight said that after all, the man was with the princess. Turning to the knight, Dietrich asked, with his arms crossed over his chest, if the knight thought of the princess as some kind of monster. Looking awkwardly at his master, the knight apologized, saying that the duke had misunderstood him. Dietrich was displeased with the knight's words. The Archduke, leaving, said that upon returning home, the training of the knights would increase tenfold. Entering Dietrich's chambers, the knight John asked what had happened in the palace. Returning from there, Winchester looked more gloomy. Looking out of the window, the Archduke waited for a pause and said that there was only a widow in the palace mourning for her husband. After the image of Liliana surfaced in Winchester's mind, the Archduke confirmed his words. Looking out of the window, the Archduke thought that the princess was in such despair that she had gone mad. Lowering her head, the Archduke's face expressed doubt. Dietrich was sure that she did not look crazy. There was a knock at the Archduke's chambers. John entered and informed Dietrich that they had arrived from the palace. As soon as Winchester allowed him to enter, Leon entered the room, looking slyly at the man. He put his hand to his chest and greeted Dietrich. Raising his hand with the envelope, Leon said that he had brought a message from the emperor. The letter said that Winchester's army, like the Archduke himself, should linger and await Fernanda's instructions. Leaning the paper against his face, Leon announced that the imperial wedding was to take place in a month, and the emperor ordered the Archduke's armies to protect the bride and groom on their wedding night, as this would be the wedding of the first princess. Looking angrily at Leon, Dietrich asked who in 4 days would stop the monsters that would emerge from the heart of Simpson's Forest. Trembling, Leon looked at the Archduke with displeasure. He hadn't expected such a harsh question. Leon asked if there was anyone else who could protect Winter City from the monsters that day, his face showing that he had no intention of letting Winchester and his army go back. Looking at Leon, the Archduke said that Winchester's army was the only one that could stand up to the monsters. Looking displeased at the Archduke, Leon said that it was not in their interest to upset the emperor. He asked Dietrich to stay for another month. The Archduke grew gloomy. He said that he could not return with the army. Calling John, the Archduke told him that Leon was leaving and asked him to see him off. Leon looked at the Archduke angrily as he turned around before leaving the room, Leon trembling with anger. The princess smiled at the battered carriage. Butler Jonathan looked at her dubiously, asking if she was a good fit. Touching the shabby fabric with which the carriage was covered, the princess said that the carriage was suitable. The princess was sure that the emperor had sent spies to her today, and not ordinary guards and maids. Turning to Jonathan, the princess told him that no one should know that the princess had left the palace. Getting into the carriage, Liliana and Mary drove away. The maid told the princess that the princess had nothing to worry about, which Liliana found strange. Smiling awkwardly, Mary told the princess that she had given the servants liquor in honor of the party. The princess looked at Mary curiously. The maid explained that she had added sleeping pills to the alcohol, so everyone would be asleep. Smiling gently, Liliana complimented Mary, calling her a young woman and looking at her kindly. The carriage stopped at a house. Mary got out first and, holding out her hand to Liliana, helped her down. Looking at the maid, Liliana asked to wait for her here, squeezing her cloak a little. Mary looked at the princess worriedly. She did not understand the princess and thought that it was dangerous to leave Liliana alone. Mary handed Liliana a dagger, asking her to take it with her so that the princess could defend herself. The princess was curious. She began to examine the dagger, carefully holding it in her hands. Looking at the princess confidently, Mary explained that she had smeared the blade with a toxin that her brother had helped Mary with, and the princess would need to cut the attacker and run. Unable to refuse the servant girl who was looking confidently at the princess, Liliana awkwardly agreed. Pulling the hood tighter over her head, the princess looked forward, exhaling. Standing up from the table, the Archduke said that Leon himself knew about the situation in the city. The monsters of Simpson's Forest would not wait for the army. As she climbed the stairs, the princess thought that she should have cleaned herself up. As Liliana approached the door, she overheard Dietrich and Leon talking about how the heart of Simpson's Forest was unstoppable. Continuing to listen, the princess heard that her wedding was planned to be postponed. Leon said that he would let the army go on one condition, which alerted the princess. When Leon said that Winchester would have to stay, Liliana recognized his voice and recoiled from the door, covering her mouth with her hands. Following Leon, the Archduke tried to object, but Leon said that he had already compromised, and it would be fair for Dietrich to agree. Standing outside the door, the princess remembered that she had ignored Leon at the funeral when he came with the emperor. Clutching the dagger in her hands, the princess thought about her desire to kill Leon, using the blade that the maid gave her. Suddenly, the princess was abruptly grabbed by the shoulder with the words that, "Even in this place there are rats." Turning Liliana to face him, the Duke asked if it was the princess, and Liliana looked at Winchester in surprise. Dietrich irritably asked what the princess was doing, to which the princess could not find words. Looking at Dragnia in surprise, Dietrich asked how she could get there in such a suspicious place, where many well-armed knights clutching the girl's shoulders. He talked about the fact that she could have been killed. As she continued to listen to the Archduke, the princess looked at him embarrassedly, thinking that the man was too close to her. Gloomy, the princess asked Dietrich if he would believe her if she told her that there was something worse than death. The princess looked awkwardly at the man. The Archduke silently looked back. Looking confidently at the man, the heroine declared that she was destined to die anyway if the Archduke did not help her. Dietrich looked at her in bewilderment. Looking resolutely at Dietrich, the princess said that it made no difference to her where she died. Turning around, the Archduke looked at Leon, who asked him to reconsider his decision. As he left, Leon looked askance at the Archduke, who was staring out of the corner of his eye at Liliana. As he was leaving, Leon said that he would report this conversation to the Emperor, and that was the end of their conversation. Winchester, with Liliana behind him, wished Leon a good trip. The Archduke looked after Leon with displeasure. The princess looked awkwardly over his shoulder. Looking at Liliana, the man asked her what was the reason for her coming to this place. Looking resolutely at the Archduke, the princess called to him, tugging at the sleeve of his robe. Clutching the hem of her cape, the princess looked confidently at Winchester and declared that he had to save her. Looking calmly at the princess, Dietrich asked if he could regard this as a threat. The princess was determined. It was clear from her look that she was not going to retreat. Liliana asked if it would work if she began to threaten. The princess listened silently as the Archduke listed the names of Dragnia's former deceased husbands. Winchester, frowning at Liliana, asked if she wanted to say that he would be next on this list. When the Archduke asked if this was an order from the Emperor, the princess replied by saying that she had come of her own free will. Turning away, Winchester said that he did not care. He had already been informed that the princess would marry again in 6 months. Looking down, the princess blushed with anger, thinking about how crazy Fernand and Leon were. When the princess said that she was not going to marry Leon, the Archduke asked her again if he would definitely be her next husband. The princess was dumbfounded when she realized that Leon had not told Dietrich that he would become the princess's fiancé himself. He was disgusting. The princess confirmed her words, saying that this may not happen if Dietrich marries her. Raising his head, the Archduke expressed his displeasure, calling the princess's words nonsense. After a pause, the princess looked at the Duke resolutely, declaring that she could help Winter gain independence. The Archduke smirked, asking if the princess thought the Winchester family was incapable of handling it on her own. Tilting her head forward slightly, the princess did not lower her eyes, saying that this was not what she meant at all. Remembering her past life, the princess remembered that Winter never became independent because the emperor refused to vacate the territory of the city. The princess was sure that even after her death, the emperor would not allow Winter to become free. The princess asked the archduke about his opinion that Winter could become independent much earlier. Winchester tried to object, but the princess was unstoppable. She asked for 3 years, saying that if Dietrich made her Grand Duchess, Winter would become independent in that time, and the princess would leave the duchy at the end of that period. Clenching his fist, the archduke asked how he could appoint someone as mistress of his house if he did not trust him. Looking at Dietrich's stern gaze, the princess thought that this man was not one to buy into lies, realizing that she had to tell him only the truth. Looking confidently at Winchester, Liliana said emphatically that she no longer wanted to be a puppet. With his arms crossed over his chest, Dietrich looked out of the window, from which he could see the princess's carriage. The archduke recalled the words of the princess that she could even annul the marriage so as not to harm the archduke. Frowning out the window, the duke thought that the princess had sacrificed her safety to get to him. Standing with his back to Alex, Dietrich asked what the servant knew about the first princess. Bowing his head, Alex called Liliana the emperor's precious doll, like a flower in a vase. Looking sideways, Alex said that he was sure that all Liliana's husbands were from the opposition party, and this was not a coincidence. However, there was no evidence that the emperor used his daughter, because the nobles themselves sent marriage proposals. But no one knew whether the princess was forced into these marriages, and it cannot be proved. Looking out the window, Dietrich said that in a month, Liliana would have her 6th wedding. Looking at the archduke, Alex asked how the princess could marry for the 6th time in a year, after which the servant added that only a fool would marry the princess. When Alex heard that Leon would be the 6th husband of the princess, he was surprised. Alex found this strange, since Leon was the emperor's assistant, asking if Dietrich felt the same way. Winchester remembered the princess's words that she would make everyone pay for ruining her life. Smiling, the princess said that she would wait for Dietrich's answer, but warned that she had little time. After leaving Dietrich, the princess went back to the palace, the carriage speeding along the road. Looking at the princess, Mary asked how the meeting went, to which the princess replied that she thought it would work out. Smiling, the maid said that she would prepare a relaxing tea for the princess when she returned. The princess, smiling sweetly, slightly closing her eyes, thanked the servant. Returning to the palace, the princess did not enter immediately. Through the crack, she examined the entrance to the palace. Something was wrong. The guards were guarding the doors. The princess realized what they had learned about her leaving the palace. Turning abruptly to the maid, Liliana handed her an envelope, ordering her to give it to Dietrich immediately. Mary was surprised by the princess's behavior, asking why the princess would not go with her. Liliana could not leave. Otherwise, Fernand would search the entire empire to return his daughter to the palace. Liliana was frightened to hear Dragnia say that her life now depended on Mary. The emperor should not take this envelope. Praying that the contents of the envelope would interest the archduke, the princess watched as the guards approached her with torches, shouting that they had found the princess. Going to Dietrich, Alex reported that the princess's maid had arrived. The servant said that he had seen this girl before with the princess, so he did not think she was lying. Mary looked at the archduke with tears in her eyes. Handing Dietrich an envelope as he approached the maid, Mary said that she had been ordered to hand it over. Taking the document out of the envelope, the archduke began to read it. Dietrich was surprised at what was written in it. Lying on the bed, the princess thought about how the emperor's suspicions had been inevitable since she had refused the marriage. Hearing the creak of the door, the princess realized that someone was coming in and quickly stood up, taking a sitting position on the bed. Leon entered the chambers, followed by a maid with a tray on which stood a cup of tea. When Leon sat down next to the princess, Liliana flinched. She became anxious at such actions on his part. The princess grew gloomy. She thought about what else she had to endure because she was too weak. Clutching the hem of her dress, the princess asked if Leon had spied on her when he said that he knew that the princess had left the palace at night. Bowing his head and closing his eyes, Leon smiled, saying that he thought that surveillance and protection were the same thing. Getting up from the bed, the princess asked who would dare to harm her. Leon said that Fernand was only trying to protect Liliana from danger. The princess began to leave, saying that she had apparently disturbed the emperor. The princess looked at Lian out of the corner of her eye as he said that the ruler had not slept all night, worried about Dragnia. However, the princess understood that Fernand was awake, not because he was worried, but because he was angry. Before leaving the princess's chambers, Lian said that the emperor would arrive soon, so the princess would need to repent of her mistakes. The princess had a thoughtful look. Looking sadly at Lian, the princess asked if the emperor was very angry. Lian smirked as he looked forward. He thought about the princess becoming docile again. Covering his mouth with his fist, Lian said that he would talk to the emperor, asking him not to disturb Fernande. After saying that she would do as Lian said, the princess thought that she felt bad. Smiling, Lian told the princess to rest, waving his hand to the maid. Reminding Liliana of her medicines, Lian asked her not to miss appointments, and the maid handed the princess a cup on a tray. Clenching her hand into a fist, the princess looked at the cup in shock. She remembered this medicine. Lian gave it to the princess daily. It was supposed to help clear the mind and calm the body, and it really helped the princess for a while. 371. Holding out his hand to the princess, Lian asked her to drink the contents of the cup as soon as possible, smiling. The princess's mind blurred, her eyes swam, and the princess's hearing began to blur. The princess woke up in her bed, squatting and holding her head. The princess realized that she had lost consciousness. On the table next to the bed, the princess saw a cup of medicine and called Lian a scoundrel. Looking into the cup, the princess thought about what it was, after all. It could be a catalyst, a drug to control Liliana's health, or even a storage poison. The princess wondered why she hadn't thought about it before. Indifferently watching the contents of the cup pour into the vial, the princess thought about how she really was a doll. The emperor arrived at the princess's palace and, entering, looked at her discontentedly. Looking at the emperor, the princess greeted him. The emperor told her that he had heard that Liliana had fainted and injured herself in her own home. Looking up at her father, the heroine said that it was not true, realizing that the emperor wanted to take advantage of his health to prevent the princess from returning. When the emperor asked about where the princess had gone the previous night, the princess's gaze hardened. The princess said that she wanted to feel free before the wedding, but since she is a widow, she had to sneak out. Looking sternly at his daughter, Fernand said that he had been told that the princess did not take medication and that he did not like the princess's disloyalty. Looking down, the princess apologized, saying that she would no longer miss appointments. Frowning at Liliana, the emperor said that it was better for her to marry as soon as possible for her own safety. The princess was interested in why Fernand was so fixated on marriage. Whether Lian had said anything to him while the princess was sleeping, she had told her father that the month had not yet passed. Looking up, Liliana asked to be sent back home as she wished. Fernand looked menacingly at the princess, asking what she had just said. He was angry. As the princess continued to talk about her desire to return home, the emperor slapped her in the face. Fernand looked at the princess angrily. Liliana was shocked. She did not understand what had just happened. The emperor shouted at Liliana. He was furious that she was criticizing his decisions. It was the princess who had undermined his trust. Holding her cheek, the princess bit her lip. She was displeased with the emperor's accusations. Sometimes the princess wondered if the emperor had the right to say so. Dragnia wondered if the emperor had any affection for his daughter. The princess, even though she understood the reason for her existence, was stunned when she was told that she had been taken advantage of, even after the cruelty inflicted on her by them. She felt sorry for them. Looking at the girl, the emperor said that he would call a healer. According to him, the princess still had not come to her senses. Fernand told Liliana that she was the princess of this country. The heroine, lowering her head, agreed with him. Putting his hand on the girl's shoulder, Fernand said that he understood the princess's thirst for freedom, but she should not succumb to such feelings. The emperor was sure that Liliana would not let him down again. He asked her to confirm his confidence. Liliana, without raising her head, said that she would fulfill her father's will and get married. Someone knocked on the door. The emperor told him to leave, but from behind the door, Lian said that the archduke had arrived for an audience with the emperor. Startled, the emperor asked. The princess was glad that Mary had managed to deliver the envelope. Turning to Liliana, the emperor told her to wait for his return. Sitting in an armchair, Fernand asked what had caused the archduke's appearance, as he usually did not arrive without orders. Looking at Dietrich, the emperor asked on what business Winchester had arrived, that such urgency was needed. Looking calmly in response, the archduke asked to meet with the first princess. Stroking his beard, the emperor waited for a pause and said that this was impossible. It would be wrong to leave the widow alone with another man. Dietrich had no intention of retreating. He said that the conversation between them would concern Winter. The emperor was interested in Dietrich's words. He replied that the princess did not know in whose possession the city was. Looking confidently at the emperor, the archduke offered to test the princess's knowledge. Waving his hand, Fernand ordered the princess to be brought and everyone to leave, frowning at Dietrich. The princess was brought in. The emperor sat in an armchair and looked at Liliana with displeasure. The princess greeted Dietrich, saying that she had not seen him since the funeral. Liliana's cheek was burning and her lip was broken. Greeting the princess in return, Dietrich began to examine her. He was worried about where the abrasions came from. Fernand looked menacingly at Dietrich. He asked him to tell him about Winter because the princess had arrived. Before he began to speak, saying that he wanted to give something away, Dietrich handed the emperor a document. Taking the paper from Winchester's hands, Fernand asked what it was. He was interested in the document. Smiling, Empress Genevieve asked if the princess was in the imperial palace, to which the maid replied with her consent. The empress asked how long Liliana had been arriving at the palace. The maid said that Fernand had hurriedly brought the princess in the morning. Looking down and smiling, Genevieve said that this time Liliana had fallen under Fernand's suspicions. The maid told that the princess had left the palace at night. Passing by the guards and maids sent by the emperor, the empress looked at the maid. The woman laughed. She was interested in the fact that the princess was trying to get free from the emperor's supervision. The empress thought that the princess had become completely miserable and had gone mad. Having cut off the rosebud, Genevieve thought that for weak people, beauty is equal to shackles. The empress, saying that she had not been able to get in touch with her brother for several days, told the maid to deliver a letter ordering her to appear at the empress's palace, and the maid bowed and informed her that she would give it to the Marquis of Bridge. Opening the door, the maid reported that Dietrich was currently in audience with the emperor. Putting her hand to her cheek, Genevieve asked, "She admired Winchester?" The next moment, Genevieve was gloomy with anger, and the maids reported to her what Dietrich had arrived. The Archduke arrived at the palace with a marriage proposal. He wanted to marry the princess. The Archduke claimed that all the subjects and the Winchester family were asking the emperor for the princess to become a duchess. The emperor thought that Dietrich could become a pillar of the opposition, but now he asked Liliana. It seemed strange, but it played into Fernando's hands. He thought that he could learn Winter's secrets through the princess. Looking at Dietrich, the emperor was glad that he would be able to find out why Winter was subordinate only to Winchester. Looking sternly at the Archduke, the emperor informed Dietrich that the princess's wedding was to take place in 3 weeks. The Archduke told him that he had told Leon that he would not be able to carry out the order because the heart of Simpson Forest would soon open. Looking awkwardly at Winchester, the emperor realized that he had forgotten about this event in the city. Fernand knew that if the monsters in Winter were not stopped, the capital would be in danger. Covering his mouth with his fist, the emperor averted his gaze and told him that he had forgotten about the heart of the forest Simpson, promising that he would cancel the order. Dietrich interrupted him, saying that he would take the princess within 4 days if the emperor approved Dietrich's proposal. Looking at Winchester's calm face, Fernand said that it was the first time he had seen such a desire to get a woman on the part of Dietrich. The emperor asked the Archduke to leave him with the princess to discuss the marriage, because this is not an easy decision. Looking sternly at his daughter, the emperor called her by name as he approached her. Looking away, the princess responded. The princess looked completely indifferent. The emperor said that he would cancel the wedding with Leon, hide the night exit from the house. Liliana only needed to accept Dietrich's proposal. Raising her head, the princess looked at her father worriedly. Doubt could be read in her gaze. Looking sternly at his daughter, the emperor said that he understood the princess, but a husband in the person of the Archduke would be much safer. The emperor said that if the princess's husband died this time too, he would not force the princess to marry again. The princess was looking at the floor. Fernand said that he would not touch the princess again, and she would be free. He asked her to trust him. Remembering herself in the past, the princess remembered that she had believed her father unconditionally. Looking down, the princess agreed, saying that she would fulfill her father's will as before. The princess raised her head and looked at Fernand resolutely, declaring that she had a condition. Last night, the princess had asked the Archduke to come to the palace in person with a marriage proposal. The Archduke frowned at her, asking again. He did not understand why the princess needed this. Smiling, the girl said that it would be better if everyone believed that the Archduke wanted Liliana, stating that the Emperor would not send the princess away if he could not control her. The heroine remembered that the Emperor had always told her that there was nothing more stupid than a woman in love. The princess understood that in Fernanda's hands she was just a doll, and she could not be loved. Liliana said that it would be better if the Archduke acted as if he was in love with the princess. Dragnia understood that her request was rude, and everyone would have believed it even if the Archduke had simply sent the letter, but the fact that Dietrich had come himself made the princess blush. The princess forced a tear, looking pitiful, and said that she was afraid she would not be able to get used to winter. Holding out his hand to his daughter, the Emperor told Liliana of his confidence that she would enjoy it there. Covering her mouth with her hand, the princess said that she had already lost 5 husbands. She was already tired. The Emperor was displeased that the princess complained, in his opinion, about such trifles. Wiping away a tear, the princess looked at the Emperor indifferently, gloomy. Looking at her father, Liliana asked if she was right in saying that the Emperor needed information about winter. The princess declared that she would bring her father everything he needed. In return, he should allow her to use her property on her own. Looking awkwardly at his daughter, the Emperor asked her what she was talking about. The princess explained that if she went to distant lands without anything, she would be left penniless. Liliana said that she was already considered a witch, so there would be no one to accept her. Smiling, the princess asked the Emperor not to interfere in her personal condition. The Emperor silently listened to the princess, who said that she would begin to control her own property. Looking at his daughter, Fernand thought that she had changed a lot, but it was too late to do anything. The princess said that the property of her 5th deceased husband, the Emperor, could consider her dowry. Fernand looked at Liliana incredulously, who said that this would be enough for her to survive in winter. Taking her father's hand, the princess asked him to trust her, declaring that she would not disappoint him. Dietrich nodded to the Emperor, saying that he knew about it when Fernand said that he cherished Liliana. The Emperor talked about allowing the Archduke to marry his daughter. In exchange for canceling her 6th wedding, he asked what Dietrich could offer him. Grimacing, the princess thought about what her father wanted to get, because Dietrich's lands did not bring much income. Winchester said that when he arrived home, he would send the Emperor several hundred chests of gold and many skins of various animals. The princess was shocked by so many gifts. 1 chest of gold was enough for a nobleman to live for a year, and 1 skin was worth much more than 1 chest. Looking at the Emperor, the Archduke said that the princess was worth much more, but he hoped that Fernand would take it as a token of gratitude. Looking back at the Archduke, the Emperor nodded, agreeing to such a gift. The princess, pursing her lips and stealing a glance at the Emperor, called him a rude. Frowning, Winchester asked the Emperor to leave him and the princess alone so that they could talk. Before leaving them, Fernand called himself inattentive, allowing them to talk. Dietrich thanked him for his courtesy. Closing his eyes, the Archduke asked why the princess was silent. He was sure that this was exactly what the princess wanted. Looking away, Liliana said that Dietrich had crossed the line and gone too far when he mentioned his family, vassals, and others in his request. Taking out a piece of paper, the Archduke said that the princess had asked Mary to take him to him. Smiling, the princess assumed that Dietrich was shocked by Liliana's actions. The Archduke said that the princess was too reckless, asking what she would do if he just kept the document and didn't come. Smiling, the princess said that her assumptions had come true because the Duke had arrived after all. Having said that the Archduke could consider the army of the late Viscount Barley to be the dowry of the princess, she watched Dietrich. He did not deny this. Realizing that Dietrich might know about the number of soldiers in the army or even help assemble it, she put a document on the table, saying that she had already discussed everything with her father. Looking at the document, Winchester said that he would visit the palace again tomorrow. Saying goodbye to Dietrich, the princess got up from the sofa and asked him to take care of himself. The princess's heart beat faster. She was sure that her father would not oppose her. The only problem was Leon. The princess was interested in what he would do when he found out. Liliana was sure that Leon would not want to postpone this marriage because of Stan. Dragnia felt sorry for the child, but she was not going to sacrifice herself for him. Mary happily ran up to the princess with tears in her eyes. She was glad that she was fine. Putting her hand on Mary's shoulder, Liliana said that she had done well. Smiling sweetly, the maid was happy. Looking at the princess a little worriedly, the maid said that an adjutant was waiting for the princess inside. Smiling, Liliana thought that he was faster than she expected. Folding her hands into a lock, Mary announced that he looked angry, and the princess had better avoid him. Looking resolutely ahead, the princess asked to open the door for Mary with a smile on her face. Looking away, Liliana asked Leon to tell her that he wanted to leave. The princess folded her hands into the lock, thinking that she should not let her guard down in the palace. Sitting across from Leon, the princess knew that she no longer needed to be afraid of him, but that she could not stop waiting for something. Leon was gloomy, frowning at the princess, he called her, to which he received permission to speak. Continuing to look at the girl, Leon asked if she knew who was supposed to be her fiancé. The princess said she didn't know, adding that it didn't matter if the wedding was cancelled. Without raising his head, Leon notified the heroine that he was her fiancé. The princess looked at him, wondering if this was really the case. The princess, smiling, asked Leon why he was telling her this. She wondered if he thought that the princess would disobey her father for him. Looking at the princess, Leon said that he could help her if she didn't want to go to winter. Trembling slightly, Leon explained that if the princess did not want to go to the city, then Leon would take her side, but the princess interrupted him. Tilting her head to the side, the princess smiled as she asked who said she didn't want to go there. Looking ahead, Liliana was surprised that she could be so calm with Leon. Sitting in front of him, the princess realized that every time she had been tormented either by resentment or by regret. The girl thanked God that she could tell him what she wanted to say in her previous life, going back 3 years. Looking innocently at Leon, the princess said that she would not marry him. She was glowing with happiness and relief when she said the cherished words. Leon was furious, shaking with anger, all the anger and hatred towards Liliana in his eyes. The princess was confident in her words, determination in her eyes as she said that she would rather die than marry him. Getting up from the couch, Liliana said that Leon dreamed in vain if he thought that he had a chance, asking him to leave. Jumping up from his seat, Leon screamed, trying to contradict the princess, but he failed. The princess stood up and, smiling, wished him to take care of himself, turning away from him. A little worried, Mary asked if everything would be okay, notifying Liliana that Leon had come out irritated. The princess said that the Archduke was really a terrible person, recalling the events of his past life. Touching her cheek, the princess said that Leon was not brave enough to disobey the emperor. With her back to Mary, Liliana thought that if Leon had been brave enough, he would have rebelled. Looking up, Liliana asked if Mary's brother was involved in herbs. Mary looked at the princess proudly, confirming this, telling her that her brother always took first place in the academy. Liliana thought that Leon had gained the emperor's support because of his interest in poisonous and medicinal herbs, but the princess realized that this was not enough to pass on the title to her son. Stan had no choice but to follow in his father's footsteps and start studying medicine too. Taking out the vial of the drug that the princess was given to drink, Liliana told Mary that she had a request. Mary asked the princess if it was the medicine that Lion and the emperor were giving her to drink. Confirming the words of the servant, Liliana asked her to find out what this medicine consisted of. Taking the bottle from the princess, Mary said that she would send it to her brother along with the letter. The princess said that new servants would arrive tomorrow on the orders of the emperor, so it would not be noticeable if Mary left. Mary thanked the princess and, saying goodbye to her, left Liliana's room. Looking out the window, the princess thought that she was lucky that Mary's brother was a talented man. Winter needed such people. The knights of the Archduke and Alex were shocked by the news that Dietrich was getting married, and the news that Princess Liliana would be the bride drove into them worries about the Archduke. Alex was shaking from the lack of understanding of the situation. He was interested in how everything came to this, because Dietrich himself said that Leon would be Leon's 6th husband. Winchester was completely calm, confirming Alex's words. He did not even hesitate. Remembering the previous evening, Alex asked if the princess had visited him for this. One of the knights, Fred, asked John for Alex's words, and also asked if the princess was really beautiful, as they say in rumors. Dietrich said that he understands how unexpected this news is, but it does not change the fact Liliana will become a duchess. Alex looked at the Archduke awkwardly as he said that they would return to winter when the princess arrived. Continuing to look at Dietrich, Alex asked if he knew what rumors were circulating about the princess. Remembering the image of the princess, Winchester confidently said that he knew everything. Dietrich knew of 5 failed marriages in which husbands died the day after their wedding night, and he even assumed that the princess had killed them herself. Looking at Dietrich worriedly, Alex said that he was afraid that the princess would not be accepted because of the rumors. Looking at Alex, Winchester said that the rumors would disappear once everyone knew the truth. According to him, the princess was also ready for this. Alex suggested that the Archduke make a wedding gift for the princess, saying that she would need some of her personal belongings, notifying Dietrich that he would send a letter to Lord Majestic when the princess arrived. After thinking for a while, the Archduke asked again. Alex explained that at the wedding, according to the rules, you need to exchange gifts. After thinking for a while about the gift, the Archduke said that he would visit Ellis for this reason. Ellis, the owner of the jewelry store, greeted Winchester, inviting him to the window. Listening to Ellis's chatter, the Archduke thought about what he was doing now. He was embarrassed. After thinking for a couple of seconds, the Archduke decided that it was better for him to leave before he saw the sparkling product. Seeing Winchester's gaze fixed on the window, Ellis asked if the Archduke liked it. Guessing that the Archduke was looking for a gift, the hostess of the jewelry quickly packed the product. Looking at Ellis, the Archduke asked if there were any hospitals nearby, explaining that he needed medicine. Tilting her head to the side, Ellis looked curiously at Dietrich, asking what it was for. Dietrich said that the medicine was needed for a swollen cheek and a broken lip. He did not understand whether there was a wound inside. After selling the jewelry to Winchester, Ellis said that she had the product and explained how to use it. At night, the princess could not sleep. Sitting on the bed, she thought that she still had a lot to do. The princess was distracted from her thoughts by a knock on the door. When she turned her head in the direction of the noise, Liliana was informed that the Archduke had come to her. The princess was surprised by Dietrich's late visit. She was interested in why he had arrived. Throwing the cloth over her back and shoulders, the princess stood up and asked to tell Dietrich to wait a while, after which she allowed him to enter. Winchester immediately entered the chambers, having heard permission, agreeing with the princess. The princess asked worriedly about what had caused Dietrich's arrival. She was worried that the emperor might become angry. Looking calmly at Liliana, the Archduke said that Fernand had allowed him to visit the princess. Looking at Dietrich with concern, the princess asked if the emperor had really given permission. Pursing her lips, the princess wondered if the emperor should ruin the family's reputation in order to obtain information about Winter. The princess offered the Archduke to settle down as it was convenient for him, but did not offer tea, explaining that everyone was asleep now. Looking seriously at Dietrich, the princess asked him why he had come. Placing a small box on the table, the Archduke said that he had come to give it to the princess. After asking what was in the box, the princess opened it. There was a small hairpin. Looking at the blue emerald, the princess said that she had never seen a more beautiful stone. Closing his eyes convincingly, Dietrich told Liliana that the stone was the same color as her eyes. The princess asked again, to which she received an explanation. The Archduke said that when he saw the hairpin, he remembered the princess's eyes. Dietrich blushed Liliana with his words. The princess was thinking about what to do. She could misunderstand Winchester's behavior. Dietrich calmly looked at the girl, hearing that she would treasure this gift. Bowing her head, the princess asked what the Archduke had brought when she saw another box. Dietrich replied by saying that it was an ointment for the princess's abrasions and explained how to use it. Raising her hand to her lips, the princess thought that Dietrich was worried about her wound and thanked her for the ointment. Dietrich asked Liliana to apply the ointment in his presence so that he could make sure that the princess was using it. Using the ointment, the girl wondered if she was old-fashioned or if it was the Archduke who was too familiar with her. Hearing the princess hiccup, Dietrich became worried and asked if she was in pain. Smiling sweetly, Liliana said that it hurt a little, and she also thanked him for the ointment and hairpin. The princess was very surprised when Dietrich touched her face with his hand. After smearing the ointment, the Archduke sat back down. Removing his hand, he said that the ointment was smeared unevenly. The princess felt uncomfortable looking at Winchester. She quickly thanked him, stuttering slightly. Closing his eyes, Dietrich nodded to Liliana, telling her that he had nothing to thank him for. Clutching the shawl, the princess thought that what she was feeling now was a little strange. Sitting opposite the Archduke, Liliana informed him that she also had something to convey to Dietrich. Putting his hand on the document that was lying on the table, Winchester said that it was a contract. Liliana confirmed his words, saying that their marriage was unusual, but she used the word contract. Looking down, the princess said that she had thought that they should have a backup plan if the public became aware of it. Reading the document, Dietrich noticed that it contained many unfavorable points for the princess. The princess thought that if she did not take anything before her disappearance after 3 years of marriage to Dietrich, then she would atone for her guilt. Lowering her head, the princess asked the Archduke's consent to this treaty because it would be easier for her. Looking at the princess, the Duke said that from the clause about 3 years of marriage, you can understand that this is a contract. Saying that the 3 years of marriage had been mentioned orally, the Archduke crossed out the clause about it. Looking up, the princess asked what Winchester would do if she did not leave the duchy in 3 years. After saying that he would come up with something, Dietrich asked how he could understand point 7, which stated that they could not interfere in each other's private lives. Thinking that Dietrich could bring a mistress, as Leon did, the princess also thought that the Archduke could have a child. Lowering her head and closing her eyes, Liliana said that she did not want Dietrich's vassals to bother him about the heir because of her. Dietrich was upset that the princess had such an opinion of him, and he asked the princess not to worry about his vassals. The princess watched in silence as Winchester continued to cross out what he thought were unnecessary points. Raising his head, the Archduke said that one of the clauses stated that she could not own the Winchester property, and he asked if this meant that the princess was relinquishing the Duchess's authority as well. Covering her mouth with her hand, Liliana looked at the document awkwardly, thinking that she had been in too much of a hurry to put it together. Continuing to look at Dragnia, Dietrich said that this point is also superfluous. Liliana silently listened to what Dietrich said about her having to accept the power given to her in the future. The girl understood that Dietrich had in mind the role of the Grand Duchess, and this was a heavy burden for her. After signing the document, the princess thought about whether it looked like a contract marriage. As he was about to leave, Dietrich said that the contract would lie with the Archduke, and asked the princess to forget about its existence, simply fulfilling her role. Looking awkwardly at the man, Liliana thought about what had just happened. Dragnia replayed this meeting in her head. She thought about the fact that they had discussed the contract, and she had received the gift she was holding in her hands. Looking at the emerald the next day in the sun, the princess thought that it was beautiful. Liliana received something for the first time. Looking at a beautiful wedding dress, Liliana was offered to stop at it. Dragnia remembered that it was in this dress that the princess entered Leon's house. Looking at the servant, the princess ordered him to throw it away and make sure that it did not get into her luggage. Turning around, the princess thought that she did not want to drag unpleasant memories with her to winter. Choosing a blue dress with a black ribbon on the belt, Liliana said that she would wear it. Liliana asked to remove all jewelry from her hair, leaving only the hairpin that Dietrich had given her. The maid, combing the princess's hair, nodded, listening to Liliana's request. Looking at her reflection, the princess was smiling. She looked different from her marriage to Leon, and she liked it. Looking at the hairpin in her hair, the princess thought that the fact that Dietrich had memorized the color of the princess's eyes proved that he was more sensitive. Looking at Liliana, the maid bowed and said that it was time for the princess to go. Agreeing, Dragnia prayed that she would not return to the palace again. The princess was greeted by Winchester. With his hand in his chest, he greeted her. Liliana looked at the Archduke's outstretched hand in bewilderment. She did not understand what he wanted. Looking at the princess, Winchester explained that according to Winter's tradition, the groom should greet the bride. Understanding Dietrich's intentions, the princess held out her hand to him, thinking that this was only the beginning. The heroine thought that after that night she would become a Grand Duchess, not a princess. As she looked around the room, Dragnia thought that it was different from the one she had been in with Leon. The maids, bowing, said that all night the chambers would be guarded by the Knights of Winter and the Imperial Palace. After wishing the newlyweds good night, the maids left, leaving them alone. Looking at the floor, the princess could not stop worrying. Dietrich knew this as he looked at her. Looking straight ahead, the Archduke began to talk about how nervous he was before every battle. He said that no one dared to belittle a man who entered the battlefield again. With a laugh, the princess wondered if the Archduke was trying to calm her down with his words. Looking at Liliana, Dietrich asked if she wanted a glass of wine, to which Liliana replied that she did. Blushing with excitement, the princess thanked Winchester and drank some wine. Thinking of Dietrich, the princess reflected on the fact that he had done a lot for her. Holding the glass in her hand, Liliana said that she would do everything so that the Archduke would have no regrets. Hearing his name from the princess, the man looked at her, agreeing. When Liliana said that she was hot, Dietrich asked her again. He did not understand what it meant. Clutching a lock of hair in her hands, the princess repeated, saying that it was hot in the room. Her face was burning. The princess reached out to Dietrich, bringing her face closer to his. Winchester was stunned by such actions on the part of the princess. Squeezing Dietrich's clothes, Liliana said that it was stuffy in the chambers. The girl was too close. Approaching Dietrich more closely, the heroine tried to kiss him. She heard the beating of her heart. Liliana wrinkled her face from the bright light, not moving from her sleep. She thought about when she fell asleep. The girl had an epiphany. Her eyes widened. She jumped out of bed, calling for Dietrich. Turning to the heroine, Winchester replied, saying that he was here. Dietrich was sitting on the bed next to him. Taking Dietrich's hand, Liliana began to repeat that Winchester was really alive. She was afraid that if she opened her eye, she would see the corpse again. Looking at the girl, the Archduke asked if she had had a nightmare, to which he received a negative answer. Dietrich asked her if she was worried about him, fearing that he would die, and Liliana asked if he remembered that he had refused to be the sixth dead. Dietrich admitted that he said this because he thought that the princess would back down from her idea. The man said that he understood that she chose him because she was sure that he would survive. Looking at Dietrich, Liliana thought about how her anxiety was slowly dissipating. Getting out of bed, Dietrich said that he would go to the Emperor to get official confirmation of the status of the new Grand Duchess for Liliana. Hearing that Liliana should go with him, the Archduke refused, saying that it was better for her not to leave the bedroom. Hearing that the girl who spent her wedding night with her husband would not be able to move so easily, Liliana blushed. Hiding her face in the blanket, the princess said that she understood. Her face was burning with embarrassment. Putting her hand on Dietrich's chest, Liliana asked to be released, to which the man said that it was not the best idea. Saying that perhaps now was not the right time and place, Dietrich, looking at the princess, said that they were now in the bedroom and it was night. Hearing that they were in the room for the newlyweds, the princess mentally asked, looking at Dietrich uncomprehendingly. Snuggling up to Dietrich, the princess asked him not to die that night and to live until morning. Mary whispered at John, saying that she needed to go to Liliana. John stood his ground, not letting the maid into the chambers, saying that they were asleep. Mary swore, saying that she was the princess's personal maid, and it was very urgent, to which John said that the Archduke had ordered no one to disturb them. Opening the door, Liliana asked the knight to let the maid in, explaining that they needed to discuss something. Agreeing, John said that he would be waiting outside the door, calling Liliana the Grand Duchess. Liliana smiled, realizing that despite the rumors about her, she would be recognized as a Grand Duchess. Looking at the girl, Mary apologized for not being able to return earlier, explaining that it had taken her a long time to leave since the Master of the Mage Tower had arrived at the academy. Hearing about the Master of the Tower of Mages, the heroine asked if the maid was talking about Dementius Riquan. When Liliana said that he was rumored to have refused to leave the Magus Tower, Mary confirmed this, saying that she was surprised too, asking Liliana if anything could have happened. Remembering the medicine, Mary said that her brother needed time to determine because there were many components in it. Looking away, Liliana thought that she didn't really need to find out the ingredients urgently, but it seemed to be important since this medicine had been sent even today. Liliana asked the maid if she could ask her brother to find out about the lineup as soon as possible and let her know. Mary replied that she did. Looking at the maid, Liliana said that she would ask for a message from her brother to be delivered to Winter as soon as it arrived, thinking that it was best not to take the medicine yet. Smiling at Liliana, the maid said she was confident that everything would be fine. Smiling back, the Duchess said that she would hope so, looking at Mary. Mary, remembering Dietrich, asked where he was, to which the princess replied that he had gone to the Emperor. Going to the window, Mary asked when he would be back, to which Liliana said that he would be back tonight. Looking out the window, Liliana thought that she had a lot of free time. Approaching the knight, Mary called to him. John looked at her when he heard his name. Looking out from behind the door, Mary asked if Liliana could go for a walk, calling her a princess, after which she immediately corrected herself, calling the girl a duchess. Looking at the maid, John said that the Grand Duchess did not need permission if her actions did not contradict the Grand Duke. Upon leaving the chambers, Liliana was surprised to see that there were no soldiers or servants sent by the Emperor, which was different from her life in the palace. The heroine realized that these are the differences in the life of a marionette princess and a recognized Grand Duchess. In the garden, the princess met Lord Majestic, who said that he had been preceded. John bowed to greet him, and Majestic greeted the knight in return. Smiling, Majestic greeted Liliana, introducing himself as the head of the Winchester Merchant Company. Smiling, the Duchess invited Majestic to sit next to her, wondering if this was really the infamous Majestic. Sitting down on a nearby bench, the Lord thanked Liliana. The girl asked what brought him to this place. Upon hearing that Majestic was returning home after delivering some things to the Emperor, Liliana asked if he was doing it personally. Majestic confirmed this, mentioning Leon, who was interested in medicinal herbs. The Lord said that the Emperor was a profitable client. As she looked at the man, she thought that the Majestic goods were of high quality, remembering that Leon hated House Winchester, and wondering that the Emperor had agreed to meet with the head of the merchants. Looking at the heroine, Majestic said that he was waiting to meet Liliana. He is grateful that he was able to meet her by chance. Smiling, Liliana said that Dietrich was not in the palace, to which the Lord replied that he knew about it. Extending his hand to the Duchess, Majestic gave her the red stone. The princess asked what it was. The stone did not look like a ruby. Looking at Liliana, Majestic explained that it was a fire stone. The Lord was talking about how winter was much colder than she thought, and the stone would help her survive this cold. Holding the stone in her hands, the princess thanked Majestic as she examined the fire stone. The Lord asked him to take care of Dietrich, calling Liliana her lordship. Pressing the stone to her chest, the girl smiled at the Lord. When Majestic left the Duchess, Liliana asked John what kind of lord was a man. Looking in front of him, the knight said that Majestic belonged to the ancient tribe of Luxeri, known for its long life, and no one knew how old the lord was. John added that Majestic was rumored to have served 2 grand dukes. Looking at the retreating figure of Lord Luxury, Liliana thought that he was a mysterious person. In the restaurant, they discussed the fact that Liliana had remarried, calling her a witch. These words were heard by the Archduke, who was sitting in his cloak, and Dietrich looked out of the corner of his eye at the source of these phrases. The Duke was sitting at the same table with 2 young men who were discussing this, one of them suggesting that the princess's current husband would be found dead again. Alex quietly said that rumors were slowly reaching this place, adding that Liliana's 6th husband was alive. Someone said that he had heard that the princess had fun with young men every night to preserve her youth. Calling it shamelessness, the man said that he had heard that the princess had sacrificed her deceased husbands to summon the devil. Listening to the conversation of the company of men, Dietrich noticed that the rumors were short and too malicious. Dietrich and Alex discussed the fact that the rumors seemed to have been spread on purpose, noting that none of these people were afraid of punishment for insulting a member of the imperial family. When Alex heard that someone had said that the Emperor and Empress had indulged the princess too much and she had grown up to be a witch, he said that it was possible that someone from the Emperor's entourage had spread the rumors, to which Dietrich agreed. Saying that he had to get home first, Winchester asked if the horses were ready. Alex explained that poison was mixed into the hay. Dietrich asked if the groom had been interrogated, to which Alex replied that the groom had been found dead. Saying that the Emperor's supporters had begun to act, Dietrich ordered everything to be prepared before morning. Looking around the restaurant, Dietrich thought that it would be difficult to find the source of the rumors about Liliana. The Duke hoped that winter would become Liliana's hideout, and there would be no more dirty rumors. Walking beside John, Alex said that it is quite difficult to serve someone who has never had a romantic relationship. Continuing to walk forward, John said that it did not bother him in any way. Saying that although the marriage would be loveless but the duties would be fulfilled, Alex was glad that he would soon serve Dietrich's child. Still calm, John said that it would go by itself. Looking awkwardly at the knight, Alex said that the young couple might have feelings for each other, thinking that John was imitating Winchester. Sitting up in bed with a bruised ankle, Liliana greeted Dietrich and then Mary, looking awkwardly at the Archduke. Seeing the Duchess's injury, Dietrich asked who dared to touch a member of the imperial family. Lowering her head and pursing her lips, the princess hesitated, covering the bruise with a blanket. Kneeling down in front of Liliana, Dietrich took the girl's bruised leg in his hands, telling everyone to leave. Liliana was surprised. Mary looked at the girl with a worried look, asking if she should leave or not. Liliana, embarrassed by Dietrich's actions, looked confidently at the servant. Considering the injury, Dietrich said that he had not been informed about it. Liliana explained that she had asked John not to talk about it. The Archduke, sitting in front of Liliana and holding her leg in his hands, asked why she had not called for a doctor. Smiling, Liliana said that everything was not so bad, looking confidently at her leg. Applying a bandage to the bruise, Dietrich said that a healer even exists to treat such injuries. Smiling, Liliana said that she understood everything. Looking into the eyes of the Archduke, she asked him to stop scolding her. After a little hesitation, Dietrich asked that she really thought that he was scolding her. When Dietrich cut off the bandage, Liliana said that Dietrich looked angry. Winchester said that he had no intention of scolding Liliana, to which the girl responded with understanding. Raising his head, Dietrich asked how the Duchess had injured herself while calmly looking at the princess. Liliana said that she fell. She did not lie, but she did not want to talk about it herself, knowing that the man would soon find out about it himself. Continuing to look at the girl, Dietrich sternly asked if it had anything to do with Leon. Dietrich was surprised when the girl began to laugh. Liliana said that the Archduke was very smart. When the man was done with the bandage, Liliana straightened the hem of her dress, pulling it up. Looking at Dietrich, the girl said that she did not want to bring trouble to Winter in the Winchester house, said that she was afraid of John. The princess knew that Fernanda would not care if Leon insulted her, but the fact that the knight raised his hand against the emperor's assistant would be taken by Fernand as a personal insult. Fingering, Liliana added that she didn't want everyone to think she had seduced Leon. Lowering her gaze, the girl asked what Dietrich thought people would take her side if this matter became known to society. Thinking about it, Liliana realized that despite Leon's guilt, everyone would consider her guilty. She realized that she felt uncomfortable about Winter because of the already large number of rumors about her in a bad way. Cornered in her own thoughts, the girl said that she didn't want the rumors to haunt her. Looking down and thinking about something, Dietrich said that everything was almost ready for a return to Winter. As she watched Dietrich leave, Liliana wondered if the Archduke would leave the case in the future. Turning to the girl, the man said that he had to give it back in the morning, handing the heroine an envelope, asking her to open. Taking the envelope, Liliana agreed, guessing what was inside. Reading the contents of the document, the girl began to cry. She realized that it was just one short sentence. But Liliana finally waited for her freedom. She took the first steps from those who killed her. Clutching the document in her hands, Liliana looked at Dietrich with tears of joy in her eyes, thanking him. Putting on his shirt, Winchester asked her to rest, buttoning her sleeves. Wiping her eyes from tears, Liliana, looking at Dietrich, asked him where he was going. Looking at the girl, the man said that he had one thing to finish, adding that he would come for Liliana when the carriage arrived. Liliana, after thinking, called to Dietrich. The man turned to her, responding. Liliana asked him if she could ask him a favor. Bowing her head, Dietrich asked if she remembered that he had asked her to use the Duchess's power. Smiling, the princess was a little embarrassed. She asked him to find someone for her. When Dietrich asked whom she needed to find, the girl looked confidently at the Archduke, loudly calling out the name of Volt Walter. Thinking about the fact that not all jewelry is made to be touched, Liliana considered herself one of them. Remembering her past life, the girl thought about how she had always been by Leon's side and could not do anything. Comparing herself to a decorative flower, the heroine recalled that Leon had never treated her like a person. When meeting friends, Leon sat Liliana next to her like jewelry, thanks to which she learned a lot about the new disease. Even talking to himself, Leon did not let Liliana go, and that's how she found out about Volta. The girl also had the opportunity to look at the letter in which people asked Leon for help. Looking ahead seriously, Liliana thought about how she needed to steal Leon's future glory and use it against him. Looking at Dietrich, the heroine said that Winter needs Walter Walter. Looking at the Duchess, Winchester listened to her say that she understood Winter's caution. Taking Liliana's hand, Dietrich, interrupting her, said that he would always support her decision. Looking up at Winchester, Liliana was surprised. She thought that he would refuse, because it was about Winter's safety. Looking down, Liliana, starting to think about whether her decision would be wrong, she decided to be careful. Liliana began to explain that Walter was an engineer who understood agriculture. This moment raised a couple of questions in Dietrich. After hearing from the Archduke that Winter's climate was not suitable for agriculture, the girl said that this was another reason to hire him. According to Liliana's memories, Volt will use magic stones to build a greenhouse that can protect plants from all natural phenomena except sunlight. Due to Volt's naivety, Leon took all of Walter's credit for himself, leaving him in the shadows. Looking at the girl, Dietrich thought about how Liliana could find out about this, because according to rumors, she was not interested in anything and was an obedient doll of the Emperor. Saying that he would look for this engineer, Dietrich asked Liliana to go to bed with her hand on her shoulder, which made the girl blush a little. Gathering herself, Liliana left the manor, followed by Mary with a suitcase in her hands. Approaching the Duchess, Dietrich asked about the condition of her ankle, looking at the girl. Smiling, Liliana replied that everything was fine, thanking Winchester. Looking at the smiling Mary with the suitcase in her hands, Dietrich asked if it was all the Duchess's luggage, to which Liliana replied that it would be enough for her. John reached for the suitcase to take it from Mary, while Dietrich told Liliana that he wanted to introduce some people to her. Winchester introduced Alex to her as his assistant. Alex Schmidt. Alex bowed, smiling and greeting her, saying that he could be called just Alex. Dietrich then introduced the guards, John Creebury and Fred Winston. The knights bowed, saying that they would protect them. Smiling, Liliana said that it was a pleasure to meet her and asked to take care of her. After asking if everyone was ready, the company got into the carriage and went to Winter. Looking out of the window, the princess was surprised that the carriage had stopped. She asked if they had arrived. Walking to the carriage, John said that they were still quite far from the city. They planned to make many stops. John added that the princess should go out for a minute. Bolt was standing outside the carriage. Looking out of the carriage, Liliana fell into a stupor. She was very surprised that Walter was standing in front of her. Getting out of the carriage, Liliana, behind whom stood Dietrich, told Volt, behind whom the knights were standing, to sit down. Walter obediently sat down. Looking at Liliana, Bolt listened to her. The girl said that she did not have time to explain, so she would tell her briefly. Looking at Volt confidently, Liliana offered him unlimited resources, and in return, he would work for the Winchester house and go to Winter. Smiling, Liliana talked about how his invention would help Winter and save many people. Walter apologized and said he couldn't go there, his face twisting with regret. The princess was surprised by this answer. She did not understand what was an obstacle for him. Looking at Walter, Liliana asked him to explain the reason for his refusal. Bolt explained that he had a fiancée and she needed him, so he had to stay. Looking up at Dietrich, Liliana asked Volt if he would be happy to take his fiancée with him, to which Winchester nodded approvingly. Smiling, Liliana looked at Walter, saying that Winter needed his talent. Smiling sheepishly, Volt thanked the Duchess, asking if he could discuss it with his fiancée. Liliana agreed, saying that they would provide everything so that Bolt and his fiancée could settle in Winter. Pulling his finger, Walter said that his fiancée had a child and asked if he could go with them. Seeing Volt off, the knight said that he could send an answer through the knight who escorted him. Smiling happily and embarrassedly, Walter thanked Liliana before leaving. Waving her hand, Liliana smiled back, saying that she would wait for an answer. Lowering her hand, the princess thought that Volta's fiancé might not agree. Looking sideways, the heroine began to think that Leon could contact Walter before he gave an answer. Liliana thought about what Leon was doing now. Enraged, Leon walked across the red carpet in the palace, thinking that he would never forgive Winchester. Looking ahead, Leon cursed at Dietrich, the veins in his face bulging and hatred in his eyes. Looking boldly at Leon, Liliana asked him to leave because it was embarrassing for a married girl to date another man late at night. John was following her. Passing by the man, the Duchess said that she hoped that Leon would not come so unexpectedly again. Biting his lip in anger, Leon grabbed the girl's hand, loudly calling her princess. Liliana screamed for him to let go of her, wrenching her hand from Leon's grip. Unable to keep her balance, the girl fell. The knight did not have time to catch the Duchess. Protecting Liliana, John raised his hand to Leon, hitting him in the face with a swing. Leon sat sprawled on the couch and reminisced about the events of that night, thinking about how powerless he looked. Kicking the leg of the table, Leon thought that Dietrich had ordered the knight to hit him. The man had promised himself that he would make the Archduke pay for it. Remembering Liliana's face, Leon couldn't believe that he appeared so stupid in her eyes. Looking forward with hatred, Leon planned to report what had happened to the Emperor tomorrow morning and achieve the beheading of John. The door to the room creaked open, and Dietrich entered the chambers. Leon was surprised. He did not expect the Archduke's visit. As he walked resolutely towards Leon, Winchester looked at him angrily, angered by his disrespectful treatment of Liliana. Continuing to sit on the sofa, Leon screamed, asking what Dietrich allowed himself. Dietrich was mad with anger and asked if he needed to explain anything. Leon trembled. Despite his hatred for the Archduke, he could not answer him. The aura of the Archduke pressed on him. Sitting opposite Leon, Dietrich declared that the absence of one arm would not interfere with him as an assistant to the Emperor. Leon said that Fernand would not allow this. Dietrich would definitely be punished. Crossing his arms over his chest, Winchester asked if the Emperor would take the side of Leon or Winter. Leon winced when he heard Dietrich's offer of a bet. He didn't like it. Leon understood that the Emperor would not stand up to Winter, and Fernand would not help the man. Looking displeased at Leon, the man said that he would allow him to maintain his physical shape. As he began to think about what Dietrich meant, the Archduke's strength gripped Leon's wrist. From the sharp and aching pain in his arm, Leon screamed and fell to his knees, holding his hand. Dietrich warned Leon, saying that if information about what happened to the Duchess leaked out, then Leon would not get off with one wrist. As John left the palace, he said that he was to blame for being too slow. Walking in front of John, Dietrich said that he would deduct 3 months' wages from his salary, and the knight would have to run 300 laps every morning before he would be forgiven. Following the Archduke, John thanked him for his leniency, lowering his gaze. Turning to the knight, Dietrich ordered anyone who dared to harm the Duchess to be killed on the spot. After talking to Volt and resting, the crew continued on to winter at night. The maid told Liliana that she had better sleep with something soft up now. Wrapping herself in a blanket, Liliana said that Dietrich must have been tired too. Smiling, Mary said that it was as if no one had ever seen the Archduke asleep. After hearing Liliana ask who told her about this, Mary revealed that John had told her about it. The maid asked if the heroine wanted her to tell her something, to which Liliana agreed. Smiling, Liliana listened to the new fashion for pearls and white wolf skins in winter, and Mary also talked about a monster that freezes everything it touches. This magical stone, whose power never wanes, awaits its owner. Approaching the Archduke, John called Dietrich and reported that 9 corpses had been found. Looking at John, Winchester said that there were 13 killers, and Dietrich ordered to find the rest and kill them. Dietrich supplemented his order by saying that they should first cut off their legs. Walking through the forest, Dietrich said that it was better to send scouts ahead. John informed the Archduke that the poison of these people was different from the one sent by the Emperor. When John heard that the assassins had been sent by the Empress, he fell into a stupor. He did not understand what Dietrich was talking about. Remembering the image of the Empress, John asked again, to which the Archduke replied with confirmation. Entering the Empress's chambers, the servant bowed, reporting that there was no answer. Standing with her back to the servant, the Empress ordered the tongue of the servant who was unable to deliver the answer to be cut out. Genevieve was the eldest daughter in the esteemed Hale house, who was raised as a future empress. Everyone expected Genevieve to take this place, so the girl never imagined herself as anything but an empress. But everything changed after she met Dietrich. It was love at first sight. Genevieve asked Molly why Dietrich was not the crown prince she could become his wife. Genevieve was crying in the maid's chest, and the maid could only comfort her. Genevieve asked her father many times to send a marriage proposal to the Winchester household. When Genevieve once again came to her father with her request, the man exhaled languidly, covering his face with his hand. As Genevieve began to speak, her father began to shout that he did not want to hear this, reminding his daughter that she would soon become empress. The man ordered to lock Genevieve in her room and not let her out for a week. Genevieve asked Molly to deliver a letter to Dietrich, in which she confessed her love to him, so that he would at least know about her feelings. The maid looked at the girl awkwardly. She felt madly sorry for the girl. Asking for Molly's help to send the letter, Genevieve promised in return not to starve and to be obedient as soon as she received an answer. Taking the letters out of the envelope, Dietrich said that they were a love letter. Molly felt lousy as she stood with her head bowed, unaware of the fact that Genevieve had put a marriage proposal in it. Putting a letter in the envelope, Dietrich said that the maid should deliver it to her mistress. Molly thanked him. Clasping her hands, Genevieve said that she knew Molly would come back with an answer. Taking the letter from the maid, Genevieve began to read it, waiting for her consent. The answer did not please the girl. She looked at the paper in disappointment, realizing that her expectations were different from reality. After this incident, Genevieve did not say a word. Her hopes were dashed. Molly was worried about the girl, so she said that the Duke was not interested in anyone, and it was unlikely that this would happen. Saying that only Genevieve would remain in his memory for a long time, Molly hugged the girl. Even when Genevieve moved into the palace, she looked sadly at Dietrich. Walking with another servant, Molly learned that the Archduke had arrived at the palace, thinking that Genevieve would be pleased. Hearing that Winchester had arrived with a marriage proposal, Molly fell into a stupor. When the maid told her that Leon had told her the information and that Dietrich was about to propose to one of the princesses, Molly ran to Genevieve. Molly thought that she should visit the Empress before anyone spilled the beans. Genevieve reflected on the fact that Dietrich hated the imperial family but came to propose to one of the princesses. As she led the maid away, Molly said that she would find out more about everything. Looking at the maid out of the corner of her eye, Genevieve said that it was not necessary. The Empress ordered to contact Raiden, the messenger of the assassination group. Clenching the rose in her fist, the Empress thought about whom Dietrich had brought the proposal. All the princesses were either too strange or too young, in Genevieve's opinion. The Empress decided that if she could not get the Archduke, then no one would get him. Even after the refusal, Genevieve stubbornly continued to send new letters. Dietrich hoped that she would give up when she became Empress, but Genevieve was too stubborn. Every time Winchester arrived at the palace, Genevieve tried to talk to him. But no matter how hard the girl tried to get closer, the Archduke never answered her. Looking at the Duchess's carriage, the knight said that it was good that Liliana did not have a hard time with the trip. Will began to scold Mel for being too familiar with the Duchess. Will said that at first he did not believe that the Archduke had married the princess. Len said that it seemed that the reason for the Archduke's disinterest in girls was his high standards, and Mel supported him, saying that the vassals who tried to marry their daughters to Dietrich were suppressed. Looking at her comrades, the fox asked if this bothered them. The knights looked at the girl. The fox looked up, asking why they were looking at her. She did not understand their incomprehension. Throwing one leg over the other, he told them that he was sure that the rumors about the princess had reached them. Len said that the Duke was not stupid. Mel supported him. Dietrich would not have married her if the rumors were true. Will added that even Liliana's beauty would not have helped her. To Alex, their words were unexpected. He thought they were a bunch of ignorant soldiers. Looking at Dietrich with a smile, Liliana thought about how the road up the mountain was getting bumpier. The Archduke looked at his wife and asked if she was all right, to which he received a positive answer. Liliana lied, and on the next bump she jumped, falling from her seat. The Winchester served as an airbag for the girl. She fell right on him. Looking up at Dietrich, Liliana blushed deeply, realizing that she was lying on him. Hugging Liliana, Winchester looked out the window, and a voice came from asking if everything was okay. The girl, still embarrassed, began to apologize to the man, raising her hands. Looking at Liliana calmly, Dietrich told her that everything was fine, asking if she was okay. Looking at the man, Liliana said that she was fine and asked him to let her go. Looking awkwardly at Winchester, the girl called out to him, not understanding why he was holding her. Holding Liliana close to him, Winchester held her tightly, saying that it would be more comfortable than sitting in the seat. Embarrassed, Liliana looked at the Archduke, wondering what Dietrich wanted to ride in this awkward position. Taking the girl's hand, Dietrich said his name, saying that it would be better if she called him by name. In response, Liliana said that then he should call her by her first name. Looking confidently at the man, the embarrassed girl said that he needed to call her Liliana. Smiling softly, Dietrich confidently called the girl by her name and not by her highness or princess as usual. Getting out of the carriage, Dietrich carried Liliana in his arms. The girl asked when he would let her go. Winchester calmly looked at the girl. Without answering her, the girl had to call him. The man replied that the magic coming from the gate could harm a person's body. As he walked towards the gate, Dietrich said that it would be safer if he carried her in his arms. Dropping to her feet, the heroine thought that she would be able to walk on her own because she had become a Grand Duchess. Putting Liliana on a horse, Dietrich said that because of the snow, he would have to ride on horseback. Liliana asked if there was a barrier here when she realized that the snowflakes were hitting something. As she drew closer, she saw Winter, a snow-covered fortress hiding outside the barrier. Dietrich asked if the girl was dizzy when they passed through the barrier. Looking up at the man, Liliana said that she disagreed, saying that she was only surprised. Looking ahead, the Archduke said that he would order the servants to choose their clothes until the girl got used to the climate. As she rode her horse, Liliana thought that she had never imagined how a horse could gallop on such a road before. Looking at the road, the girls felt that she was cold and her back and legs hurt. Looking at the top of Liliana's head, Dietrich asked if she was okay. Clutching the edge of the saddle with hands trembling from the cold, the girl replied that everything was fine. Noticing this, Dietrich drove his horse faster, already approaching the entrance to Winter. Entering the estate, Dietrich flew past the maids who met him, ordering warm water to be brought. Looking after him, the maids began to whisper when she saw the girl in his arms. After clapping her hands, Kayla sent the maids to their posts, telling them to wait for orders, assuring them that the Duchess was fine. Sitting in front of the bed in which Liliana was lying, Dietrich said that he most likely put too much pressure on her, to which the girl replied, saying that everything was fine because she did not faint. Winchester looked down at the floor. He had nothing to say, so he said nothing. Smiling softly, Liliana called out to Dietrich, looking at him. The man looked up at her. Dietrich said that Liliana expected this when she went to winter. The girl confirmed his words, saying that it was so, looking confidently at Dietrich. Folding his hands, Winchester said that she would have to get used to the cold herself. Looking at the man, Liliana was interested in his expression, why he was worried about her. There was a clatter of dishes in the room. Someone entered the chamber, saying that he had brought water. The maid bowed and introduced herself as Kayla, the head servant of the Winchester house. Liliana smiled at her, saying that she had been waiting to meet her, thanking Kayla for coming. Pointing to the bell, the maid said that she needed to call it if she needed anything. When Kayla talked about Mary's being made her assistant, Liliana remembered how she had been wished for the death of her maids in a past life. Sitting up in bed, she listened to the maids talk about how tired they were of Leon's mistress. Looking down, Liliana succumbed to memories from the past, distracted from her thoughts by Kayla's voice. The woman smiled at Liliana, saying that everyone was happy to see her in the duchy. Listening to the servant, the Duchess remembered that she thought that she would not feel such a thing again. Smiling, Liliana said that she was pleased again, thinking that she understood that she didn't have to be so honest. Liliana was glad that no one felt contempt or hatred for her. After asking Dietrich if she could get along with everyone, the girl heard a positive answer. Carlyle stood and listened to the words that in a month she would be of age and should be a Grand Duchess. Dietrich warned Liliana that he would be gone for a few days from tomorrow. The girl asked about the reason for his absence, looking calmly at the Archduke. Dietrich explained to her that the heart of Simpson's forest would soon open, and he had to wait for it in the middle of the forest. Liliana had heard about this. She knew that there was a rift that monsters could break through. In the north of the Winter Mountains, there is an ice-free forest consisting only of Simpson trees, and there is a consistent rift in this forest once a year. Dark red monsters with red sand crawl out of this rift, a process similar to a bleeding heart, which is why it was called the Heart of Simpson's Forest. Winchester said that he fully understood Liliana's situation, but he could not ignore this event, to which the girl replied with full understanding. The discovery of Simpson's Forest was one of the reasons why Fernan could not eliminate the Winchesters. The monsters from the Sundering were stronger than ordinary warriors, so only the head of the duchy and his knights could kill them. Thinking that Fernand wanted to know a way to get rid of the monsters without Winchester, Liliana asked if Dietrich had ever been injured, to which he replied in the negative. Liliana said that Dietrich should always return safe and sound. Placing his hand on the girl's arm, Winchester told her that it would be so, calming her down. Mentioning the ice flower of Simpson's Forest, whose leaves are transparent and hard, Dietrich said that he would bring it to Liliana. Looking confidently at the girl, Winchester announced that he would return safe and sound with this flower. Liliana, smiling gently, looked at the Archduke and said that she would be waiting. When the maid began to pour wine for Liliana, Dietrich ordered fruit juice to be poured for her. The Duchess was surprised. Looking at him, Liliana said that she could drink wine. After eating a piece of food, the Archduke, closing his eyes, said what he knew, adding that wine could be drunk by anyone who wanted to. After cutting the meat, Liliana froze for a second when Dietrich warned her never to drink again. Looking up at Dietrich, Liliana asked if it had anything to do with the night they drank. Sipping from his glass, Dietrich listened to the girl's question about what she could have done then. Winchester remained silent, saying nothing, and the newlyweds continued to eat. Walking arm in arm with Liliana, Dietrich said that he would inform the butler about the arrangement of the residence, adding that Liliana could change something if she wanted. Letting go of her husband's hand, Liliana refused, saying that Dietrich knew what would happen next. Walking forward, Liliana turned around, reminding her that in 3 years she would be leaving the duchy and not taking anything with her, thanking her for the man who had walked her to her room. After leaving Dietrich, Liliana went to her chambers, after which she went to take a bath. Completely submerged in the water, Liliana relaxed. Mary asked her how she felt. Saying that the stone given by Majestic helped, the girl lowered her head, hoping that she did not seem weak on the first day. The maids, smiling sheepishly, began to tell the princess that they were surprised when she did not faint, because many knights succumbed to it. After listening to them, the Duchess smiled, saying that their words helped her calm down. Liliana asked Mary to send a letter to Viscount Barley's residence, asking her to take care of the belongings left there and to thank her for her help. Exhaling, Liliana fell silent, calling out to Liliana. She thought about something. The maid looked down. She did not know how to tell the girl that after her night departure, everyone was executed. After listening to Mary's account of the incident, Liliana smiled sadly. As she walked down the hallway, Liliana thought about how someday the days of peace would make her relax, but then her enemies would act to prove that she shouldn't. Looking out the window, which was snowing, Liliana thought that she would rule these lands for the next 3 years. As she continued to look at the view outside the window, Liliana remembered that she had promised to free Winter from the Empire. Hoping that she would be able to fulfill her promise, the girl saw Dietrich. Liliana remembered that today he must go with the knights to Simpson's forest. Dietrich turned, noticing that they were looking at him. Looking at Liliana, the man nodded to her. Putting her hand to the glass, Liliana smiled at the Archduke, which made her remember her request to return safe and sound. The girl asked Alex, who was standing behind her, when Dietrich would return. Looking at Liliana, Schmidt said that the heart opens for a week. As she removed her hand from the window, Liliana thought about how much she didn't know, saying that a week was quite a long time. Turning to Alex, Liliana asked what she could do to learn more about Winter without going overboard. Alex suggested that we go to the library. Liliana, agreeing, was surprised at its size when she entered it. Taking the book from the shelf, the Duchess began to read it with a smile on her face. Putting the book on the table, Liliana realized that she didn't understand anything and put her head on the table. Approaching Schmidt, the girl asked if she could borrow a book about Winter that would be easy to read. She was offered a book with old legends about Winter with a gold painting on the spine. Liliana thanked Alex and, taking the book in her hands, began to read it, reading about the Lan Festival. The girl asked what Lan meant. Schmidt explained that the Lan Festival is named after the goddess of fire, the former mistress of the Simpson Forest, Lanetta. Schmidt explained that the people of Winter are holding this festival because of the cold weather in the hopes that Lanetta will help them. Enthusiastically reading the book, Liliana remembered everything related to the festival. As they fought, everyone noticed that John had become faster, and the knights began to discuss the fact that he ran every morning. Suddenly, the heart of Simpson's forest abruptly disappeared, which threw the knights into confusion. One of them asked what had influenced this, since there were still 4 days left. They began to discuss whether they could leave, but no one knew for sure. Everything seemed strange. John asked Dietrich what they should do. The Archduke pondered. The area looked like last time after the closing of the heart. Raising his sword above his head, Winchester announced that his heart had closed. The battle was over. After telling everyone to prepare for their return, Dietrich ordered a couple of knights to be left just in case. When asked if Dietrich needed anything else, the man said that he needed an ice flower. As she sat at the table, Kayla thought about the fact that she needed to choose the head servant. Kayla remembered Liliana's request, who said that Alex would not be able to help her when Dietrich returned. Smiling, the maid agreed, adding that for this she needed to find someone to play the role of the main servant. Smiling, Liliana said that she would entrust this to Kayla because she knew better. The maid bowed, thanking the Duchess for her care. Thinking that she needed a faithful and long-serving person for the Winchesters, Kayla went through the maids in her head. Having crossed out one of the maids from this position, Kayla thought that it would be better for Carlisle. As Kayla walked down the stairs, she noticed the other maids talking. When one of the maids said that most nobles are arrogant people and that Liliana is simple, Kayla looks at her with displeasure. While discussing the rumors about Liliana, the maids didn't notice Kayla approaching them. Looking at the maids with displeasure, Kayla said that they should be more careful if they did not want to be fired without a recommendation. Putting her hand to her forehead, Kayla exhaled exhaustedly, thinking about how the young maids still needed training. Looking up, Kayla saw Marilyn. The woman told her that the second floor was not part of her duties. Marilyn smiled, saying that the carpet she had seen in Liliana's chambers was worn out. After asking again, Kayla made sure of Marilyn's words and left, telling her not to leave her seat again. Alex and Liliana were in the library. Liliana had read that only Dietrich could open and close the gate, except when the gate opened once a month for trading. Alex confirmed her words, adding that there was another person. Alex saw Dietrich. Liliana raised her head and looked at the Archduke. Winchester went to see Liliana and Alex, who were surprised by the Archduke's quick return. Approaching the Duchess, Dietrich announced that he had just arrived. When Liliana said that Dietrich had said they would be away for a week, Winchester looked at her out of the corner of his eye. Taking Dietrich's hand, Liliana listened to the fact that her heart had closed earlier. Dietrich asked what she had talked about with Alex. The Duchess told me that she had talked to Schmidt about the gate. Looking at Liliana, Dietrich asked if she needed to open the gate. Smiling, Liliana agreed, saying that people had arrived who needed to get to Winter. Continuing walking, Dietrich said that if it was Volt and his family, he could open the gate for them himself, but the girl refused, saying that she did not want to disturb him. Looking at his wife, Dietrich said that they were married, and he did not understand why Liliana bothered about such trivial requests. The couple looked into each other's eyes when Dietrich mentioned the nature of their relationship. After thinking about it, Liliana agreed, thinking that this was something she couldn't change. After telling Dietrich that she would ask him for help if needed, the couple went to the door of the man's chambers. 10:49. Liliana began to look around, which raised questions in Dietrich. Liliana, smiling, explained that this was her first time being in his room. Looking resolutely at the girl, Dietrich said that they needed to get used to each other. Liliana looked at him awkwardly, wondering why a man was behaving like this when they only had a contract. Handing Liliana the ice flower, Dietrich said that he had brought it as he had promised. Looking at the flower, Liliana mentioned that it looked like a crystal goblet. Dietrich said that he thought that Liliana would like the flower, adding that if you look at the flower in the morning, it will be much more beautiful. Thinking about the bedside table, Liliana said that she knew where to put the flower. Looking awkwardly at the girl, Dietrich asked if he could come to see her later. Laughing, Liliana agreed, wondering if he had told her a couple of minutes ago to get used to each other. Holding the flower in her hands, Liliana smiled at Dietrich, asking what he thought about the fact that the girl would see the flower every morning. Taking another bottle in his hands, Leon thought that he needed a drink. Drinking from his throat, Leon cursed. Knocking, he was informed that Celestia had come to him. Leaning his hands on his knees, Leon hunched over, told her to fall through. Leon threw the bottle, shouting that now was not the time, and the bottle shattered into pieces. Ivy was angered by Celestia's sudden visit. He didn't understand why she had come. Lying down on the sofa, Leon thought that maybe she should have been let in. Covering his eyes with his hand, Leon thought about what he did not want to see her now. Remembering the image of Celestia, Leon thought that she had been too obsessive lately. Still keeping his eyes closed, covering them with his hand, Leon quietly pronounced Liliana's name. Waking up in a sweat, Liliana thought that she had had a nightmare again. Thinking about the fact that the girl has been having nightmares a lot lately, Liliana took a teddy bear in her hands. Entering the Duchess's chambers, Mary asked if Liliana was awake and wished the girl good morning. As Mary walked over to the bed, she said that according to the other maids, it was a surprisingly rare warm day. Looking at Mary, Liliana asked where the Archduke was now. Smiling, the maid said that Dietrich had gone to the training hall before sunrise. Remembering that immediately after his return, Dietrich came to the heroine, Liliana wondered if the Archduke was resting at all. Putting her hands on her lap, Liliana said that she was going to see Dietrich and asked Mary to report to the kitchen that the couple would eat together. Leaving the chambers with the Duchess, Mary, smiling, agreed to fulfill Liliana's request. Smiling at the maids who greeted the girl, Liliana greeted her back, calling Layla and Ray by name. Bowing, the maids informed the Duchess that the trading gates would soon open, telling her to turn to them if she needed anything, for which Liliana thanked Layla and Ray. When Liliana arrived at the training ground, she was surprised that Dietrich was really there. Hiding around the corner, Liliana thought that she had come at the wrong time, and the girls should leave. However, as Liliana began to leave, Fred noticed her and called her, shouting to the entire court. Turning to the call, Liliana saw Dietrich approaching her, who asked what had happened. Embarrassed, Liliana said that everything was fine, saying that she had come to ask if the Archduke would mind having breakfast together. Dietrich asked in surprise if the Duchess had come to ask him personally, and after a pause, he noticed that the weather was fine. Looking at the embarrassed Liliana, Dietrich said that the Duchess had come on time because the knights had decided to take a break. Looking inquiringly at the Archduke, John thought that for the first time the knights would have a break from training. After happily asking Dietrich, Liliana heard that the man confirmed his words. Walking down the corridor, the girl said that the food was delicious. After listening to the Duchess, Dietrich asked if the girl had anything to say, explaining that she had come for a reason. Smiling, Liliana said that she wanted to visit the palace when the trading gates opened. Looking at Liliana, Dietrich asked again. The girl explained that she had made a promise to the Emperor. Closing the door to the chambers, Liliana said that she would pass on the information about Winter to Fernando. Despite Dietrich, Liliana revealed that the Emperor had asked her to visit the palace every time the gates were opened to relay information, explaining that the request was tantamount to a threat. Taking his wife's hands, the Archduke said that Liliana had promised to release Winter. Looking into the girl's eyes, Dietrich said that he believes that Liliana will not harm the city. After thanking the man for his trust, Liliana asked if Dietrich would go with her, explaining that she wanted to visit other territories, to which the Archduke agreed. Looking at the toys sitting by the bed, the Archduke asked if Liliana had brought them with her, noting that the man had not prepared them. 1098, fixating on the bear with which the Duchess slept, Liliana said that it seemed that the maids had prepared these toys to give to the girl. Taking one of the bears in her hands, the girl told Dietrich that she began to have her own things after the man gave her a brooch. For the first time, Liliana felt what was thought of her to such an extent that she was given a gift. 1101. Hugging the toy, Liliana said that she had never thought that owning something could bring so much joy. After thanking Dietrich for the man leading her to the room, Liliana began to feel dizzy. Unable to resist, Liliana began to fall, but she was caught by a worried Dietrich, saying that he would call a doctor. Liliana waved it off, saying that it has been happening since childhood, after which Dietrich asked if this often happens. After explaining that the girl was born this way, Dietrich asked if she had been checked by a doctor. When Dietrich carefully laid his wife on the bed, Liliana thanked her husband, apologizing for the inconvenience, after which she fell asleep. Waking up again in a sweat from the question of whether everything was okay, Liliana said that she had a nightmare. Worriedly asking if the maid should call a doctor, Mary heard a refusal, after which Liliana said that she would soon feel better. Looking at Liliana worriedly, Mary said that the girl always says that, but according to the maid's observations, the Duchess only gets worse. Asking if it would be strange that the Duchess would call a doctor because of the nightmare, Liliana heard from Mary that she should only care about her own health. Remembering that the girl was not in the palace, Liliana realized that no one here had any ill intentions towards her. When Liliana agreed to call a doctor to be examined, Mary lit up with happiness, running to fulfill the Duchess's request. Hearing from the Duke that Liliana should call a doctor after all, the girl said that she was going to do so, looking at the doctor who bowed to the Duchess. Hearing that the couple was of the same opinion, Liliana smiled, agreeing. Having prescribed Liliana the medicine, the doctor noticed her body as fragile, saying that his medicine would help with dizziness if the drug was taken regularly. When the doctor spoke of one butt, the Duke asked anxiously what was wrong. Bowing, the doctor said that everything was all right, and the Duchess could start taking the medicine and left. As she lay down in bed, Liliana assumed that Dietrich was very busy looking at him. Looking at Liliana, Dietrich said that nothing was more important to him than his wife's health. Embarrassed, Liliana thought that the Archduke had once again made her believe in the reality of what was happening. Taking a lock of the girl's hair in his hands, Dietrich asked Liliana to take the medicine. Agreeing, Liliana thanked Dietrich, but the Archduke said that there was no need to thank him, asking the girl to rest. Looking at the flower made of ice under the glass, Liliana thought that the Archduke cherished this contract marriage. As she lay down in bed, Liliana thought that everything in this place felt warm and sweet. Upon entering Liliana's room, Mary said it was time to take the medicine. Hearing Mary ask about the girl's well-being, Liliana turned her head in her direction, smiling. Liliana said that she felt great, suggesting that it was because of the medication, noting that it was easy to take. Saying that this was not a reason to overexert herself, Mary asked if the maid could visit her brother when the trade gates opened. The Duchess agreed, asking if it had anything to do with the ingredients the girl had asked about earlier. After hearing a positive response, Liliana said that the girls could visit the palace together. Looking at the books, Liliana thought that the girls should bring Volt and Alina to Winter. The Duchess recalled that Alina was close to Celestia, but did not get along with Liliana, suggesting that the girls became close because they liked to discuss jewelry. According to the girl, Leon knows how to find talents. Liliana could not believe that the man managed to attract people who in the future became leaders in the fashion direction, inventing a new technology for polishing stones. While studying the book, Liliana wondered where Lynetta had gone, to which the stranger replied that the goddess of fire was just sleeping. Looking at the girl, the man said that the Duchess did not look surprised. Looking at the stranger with displeasure, Liliana said that she was very surprised by the sudden appearance of the man. Calling the man a man who is free to walk around Winter's residence, Liliana asked who he was. When the man introduced himself as a friend of Dietrich, Liliana said that she would not believe it until the Archduke confirmed it. Looking at the man in displeasure, Liliana heard the stranger call himself Dementius. Looking at the man, the Duchess asked if Dementius was the master of the Mage Tower. Smiling, the man asked if the girl knew him, which made Liliana embarrassed. Librarian Jalal once mentioned a man who opens trade routes. Liliana asked if the man was talking about Dementius. After listening to the girl, the man asked if the Duchess had heard rumors about Dementius. When Liliana thought about it, Dementius said that he had also learned a lot about the girl from rumors. Looking defiantly at the man, Liliana said that the man was a rude person. Looking at the Duchess pitifully, Dementius apologized, explaining that he had been brought up badly. Liliana smiled, saying that she was sympathetic to the rudeness caused by ignorance. Smiling shyly, Dementius thanked the girl, covering the smile with his hand. Snapping his fingers, Dementius said that a gift was waiting for Liliana in the girl's office as an apology, hoping that she would like the present. Dementius disappeared, leaving Liliana alone in the library. When Liliana returned to her room, she saw Walter smiling at the girl. Looking happily at the guy, Liliana admitted that she did not expect to see Volt so soon. As he sat down at the table, Bolt said that he had managed to get there well with the help of a knight that the girl